quests. So every time you play, you'll be doing things in a different order as you hunt down those items, trying to forge a path to the end game. Then the randomizer also changes what characters you receive, what items you find in treasure chests and shops, and what bosses appear in which dungeons. Starting with just 2 characters and 1 key item, our runner's objective is to assemble a party that is strong enough to defeat Zeramis, the final boss. They will need to find a way to reach the moon, which is where the final boss resides, and they will need to find the crystal, which is the 1 key story item that is absolutely required to defeat Zeramis as it unlocks his final form. There are a lot of twists and turns on the way, but that is Free Enterprise in a nutshell.
Perfect. So with that, I think we are ready to go. So we are going to send it over to our runners, and we are going to count them in. Okay, so they have all been set up with the custom ROM, which has been set up with your donation incentives. We are starting with the first character of Dark Knight Cecil, as donated by all of you generous folks, so thank you for that. And with that, I think we should get started. So, runners, if you're ready, 3, 2, 1, go!
Oh.
So from the start, the action really gets moving right away. We see our second character is going to be Sid. We have CPU in the Beigen spot, and our starting key item is the Twin Harp.
Ooh, the Twin Harp.
Ooh, I like where this is going already.
Very excited to see, of course, aside from the donation incentive, which did give everyone Dark Knight Cecil as their starting character, a bunch of you also donated to that Twin Harp incentive, which we'll see if our Erasers paths lead them there in just a little bit.
And even if it does not during the course of this seed, which is unlikely with it as the start item, we assure you, you will get to hear the song you donated for, something from Legend of Zelda. So the paths can deviate right from the get-go, searching for items and characters that they want to recruit right away. So we're going to see it already. 2 runners are looting Baron, while 2 have run straight to Damsian.
It's an interesting deviation here right at the start. One of the reasons why Dark Knight Cecil is kind of a rude starting party member is he can equip very little in the way of any of the good weapons or armor, which, as you see, our racers are already picking up in random chests. You wouldn't see this for a long time in the vanilla game, but even with Dark Knight Cecil, you're not going to get to equip any of it. Luckily, Sid does let them have kind of a good head start, and that's why we see a little less looting and a little rushing over to start checking key item locations.
We did also get a quick look at what's inside the inn in Baron. We see that we have Yang waiting for us as a potential early character recruit, and that the Antlion is there as the first of 2 boss fights.
Speaking of the Antlion, Rivers has decided to go immediately to the Antlion Cave. This is an early game dungeon that is the first spot in the vanilla game where you can receive a key item, so it's a common, frequent early check for most racers.
It is especially good in this particular randomizer because of all the items which are dispersed all throughout the dungeon. The way the items are balanced in this particular flag set is they are quite randomized, so you can get some really good gear even in the beginning. And the boss isn't too difficult, as all of the boss's stats are scaled based on what location they are currently sitting.
Something else that would be good for them to find too, especially with Dark Knight Cecil as one of their starters, is some of what we call the Japanese items, since one of the changes made to Free Enterprise is restoring a variety of special items that were in the original Japanese version of Final Fantasy IV, but removed for the North American release. A lot of these items duplicate the effect of spells, and there are some that can give you some limited access to very strong spells early, like the Quake spell.
And we do see that the first boss in the Antlion spot is Leviathan, one that normally you'd fight much later in the game, and he still does have some of his ruder scripts. In fact, it's entirely the same. The big wave will come out, knocking off a quarter of our team's HP, but luckily, very few HP at this spot, very little magic attack power, so the Ice 2 shouldn't be too bad. River should be through here pretty quick.
Okay, so we're taking a quick pause here. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty from what I understand. all the runners have been notified. They are going to be pausing, and we will be continuing again once we have this straightened out. Hopefully it won't take too long.
While they sort through that, we have a $250 donation here from Optimus Tom. They said, I had to donate during the best Final Fantasy. Big props to the runners, the production, and staff for putting on a killer event. Now to tell my friends to tune in. Good luck, Spoony Bards. Thank you, Optimus Tom. I have a $100 donation here from Anonymous who says, okay, Prolix, I'll donate toward the blindfolded run, but that's just because you said so. So thank you. I'm so glad that me bringing that up earlier worked out. So it's just one blindfolded segment of the FF9 run, just so you're aware. But thank you for the donation. Tom Fours donated $50 here and said, hyped for the free enterprise run. Penguin Aider donated $150. They're trying to outdo and say super hyped for the free enterprise race. And I have a donation here from Conkers in the amount of $500. They said, free enterprise is such a great game and wonderful community. Good luck to the racers. I'll donate an extra $10 for each minute under 2 hours that the winner finishes in. Thank you, Conkers. Yeah, the audience giggled at that song. It could end up getting very expensive for you. You never know. $5 donation here from Sven Stick, who says, GDQ is awesome and thank you for all your work. First time donor, and I am from Sweden, so as we say here, Taxamika. Well, thank you, or Varsagud. Thank you, Sven. Here's a $10 donation from Team Miguel, who says, our 7-year-old is donating in honor of his classmate who is battling cancer. Recover soon, Miguel. We will give another $10 if read on air. Have a donation here of $210 from North Rivers, who appears to be attempting to get a chant going here. They say, AGDQ, AGDQ, AGDQ. It's working! Thank you, North Rivers. Black Sky donated $200 and said, GDQ events are the highlights of the year. Keep up the good work. Greetings from Germany. And if you tuned in looking for an update, we're just here trying to bring you the Final Fantasy IV free enterprise race. We'll be back to that shortly. In the meantime, some updates from me. So Setup Block 5 has indeed been replaced by an extra TASBot run of Twitch Plays Super Scribblenauts. Thank you to all of the donors who made that one happen. And as far as some other upcoming incentives go, I mentioned this one a bit ago. Final Fantasy IX has a few. including one where there's an extended sequence of menuing during the pandemonium portion of Disc 3, and if met, the runner will do that blindfolded. So if you'd like to see a little bit of blindfolded menuing done in the middle of the FF9 run, feel free to donate toward that. We also have a number of bid wars for things like character names and file names open as well. Also a reminder, some of the prizes are going by on your screen right now. We did have several new prizes become available here with the beginning of this FF4 free enterprise race. So check out, the official rules are on the website if you want to make sure that you can enter, and donations that qualify you toward those prize giveaways would be welcome. Here's a $100 anonymous donation, and it says, "Thank you to all volunteers. Love and support from Newfoundland and Labrador." There's a $10 donation from Lacon the Great, who says, "So stoked to watch the free enterprise race. Pulling for my boy Obdajr. Sean, may RNGesus bless you with a good seed, and good luck to all the other runners as well. Egg!" And I hear we're ready to resume now, so we'll be sending it back to the stage for Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise.
Okay, and welcome back, everyone, and we are ready to go. We managed to get past our tech issues, so let us just count our runners immediately back in. 3, 2, 1, go!
Oh.
Okay, last thing we saw just before we had our little issue was Rivers getting another key item. He got the Legend Sword, originally received by Cecil on Mount Ordeals when he becomes a Paladin. It is not a particularly useful item in this flag set other than just to be a key item. So he will be continuing his search.
Yeah, and with the power of the Ogre Axe that they found in the Antlion Cave, the Leviathan boss fight disposed of pretty fast.
We were talking a little bit earlier about the donation that was given to ensure a Dark Knight Cecil start, and that does create a few hiccups from our runners other than the gear. We were talking about how Cecil normally gets that on Ordeals, which a lot of racers tend to avoid that spot. You do have to go through 3 boss fights and a cutscene for only 1 possible key item, but having that Dark Knight Cecil in the party does incentivize everyone to go there for the sake of upgrading him to a Paladin.
Yeah, both Rivers and Obda Jr. did make a check on Hobbs, as there's a character who's locked behind a boss there. Rivers noping out, not wanting Edward or named Arby's on Obda Jr.'s screen in his party. However, Obda is choosing to fight Bahamut to try and get this character. Khobahi is running around looking at different item shops, trying to find some of those really useful items that they are going to want to use for different status effects and help, as with the J items flag on, and so the J items being actually in this seed, that can be incredibly necessary, if not useful.
Neerrm has also decided that Edward is not killing a dragon for. Apparently that's his judgment.
And meanwhile, we do run into Valvolus at where we would normally fight the full gauntlet. It's nice to not have to fight 6 fights here, but if you only have to do 1, that's probably not one even Sid is ready to take on quite yet.
Valvolus without Kane can be a pretty rough fight because you don't have a way to get her out of tornado form, where she has very, very high evasion.
Yes, so as you could see by the look on Rivers' face, he said, nope, we're going to keep going, try and hunt down some more gear, and try some other key item spots. So it looks like most of our folks, again, are just checking item shops. You're not going to see many of our runners go to either weapon or armor shops, as they are randomized less, so tend to not have things that are better than the treasure chests. However, again, our item shops can have some very excellent items, so...
And now Khobahi also making the decision to try to get the Spoony Bard in his party. So we already have a pretty big deviation. Two of our racers say no bards allowed, and the other two are saying, let's get Spoony.
We're also seeing a couple shopping trips too, with runners just kind of selling off gear that they and items that they don't anticipate needing. That's both just because the inventory space in Final Fantasy IV is very limited, and they want to try to avoid having to go into that item swap menu that comes up if you get something when you have a full inventory, and to get some money too, because people that have seen runs of the normal Final Fantasy IV game in GDQ in the past may remember that in the normal game, you can do a pretty major glitch to get infinite money very early on, but that is actually patched out of the version of Free Enterprise that they're playing right now, so they do need to be careful with their supply of money.
And we have Rivers being the first of our racers to take on the Baron Inn, which after fighting 2 bosses will give you a new character and a key item. However, you never know who that second boss is going to be hiding, and in this case it is Mylon. So with Dark Knight Cecil already dead, might be a bit of a challenge, but we're going to see whether he makes it through or not. The reward will be Yang, which is quite an excellent character, so we're definitely hoping he gets through there.
And he is taking advantage of one of those notable J items. The Hourglass items will cast Stop on any foe that doesn't have the boss bit. And although Mylon does, the Gas don't. So his children will not be feasting with that Drain ability on Sid. So should be smooth sailing to get that monk added to the party.
One of the things that a lot of our runners will also do is search a lot of the treasure troves that are scattered amongst the world to just try and get the gear to be as strong as possible to beat some of these bosses. Neerrm currently hunting through Terroria, which has not only 2 item shops and a very excellent J item that everyone is going to want to see, Sirens, which is a rare item in the vanilla game, but when found in a shop, it does summon the rare encounter in a spot, which is used very effectively for leveling, so definitely an item he wanted to see.
Yeah, because you might have noticed by now that they've gone through dungeons without random encounters, and that's in this particular flag set. That's an option you can turn on or off, kind of similar to the Bravely games on 3DS. So for the most part, they're just going to be leaving it off unless they specifically want to turn it on to level up. But in addition, they can use these Sirens in some predetermined spots to get very high XP encounters that are easy to win.
You may also be looking at the character sprites and be wondering, is my TV off? Do these character sprites look a little off? That's because one of our new flags which was introduced is called the Fab flag, which offers palette swaps for our characters. So you're going to see some of our characters join the party with colors you're not used to in the vanilla game. Oh, and that is an excellent find for Rivers. He has found the hook item. And what the hook does is it allows the airship to pick up the hovercraft and transport it to other spots on the map. That can be used to either turn in a couple of key items, or it can be used to potentially gain access to the underground and definitely access to a character. So definitely a very good progressional find.
Generally, in a given seed, you'll have 2 main paths that you could take to reach the underground. You either want the Magma Key to open up with the well in Agert, or you can take that hovercraft down. Of course, the Magma Key is a much safer route. You don't have to fight anyone else or do anything. If you take the the Eblin Cave through Upper Babel, you do have 2 very difficult boss fights, and we've not seen a white mage yet.
However, going through the Eblin Cave does grant you an additional character, which is really important when you're filling out this early game party.
Yes, along with an item shop in Cave Eblon and some opportunities to find treasure too.
And given some of these bosses we've seen, it wouldn't surprise me to see our racers making that double dip.
Absolutely. And we are seeing a lot of our runners go through to spots the other racers have been. We saw Neerrm just attempt his own Valvalis in Fabul to about the same reaction of Rivers, noping out. Likely going to see Khobahi doing the exact same.
Obda is finally making the Ordeals climb, though, going to see if he can upgrade this Dark Knight into a Paladin, drastically increase his equipment options, his HP, and just make him a very valuable party member.
Yeah, Mount Ordeals is a location which is often avoided by many of our racers. It has 3 boss fights, and the only payoff is 1 key item. So that can seem like a lot of time, especially if it's not a key item you want. However, with a Dark Knight Cecil start, unless you want to bank on getting better characters and being able to dismiss Cecil, you really do need to turn him into a paladin, because Dark Knight Cecil is the worst character bar none.
Yeah, and an additional possible incentive too is getting Tella's full spell list for fully completing Mount Ordeals too. We haven't seen Tella yet, but if Obda completes this and then finds him, he'll be a much more valuable character.
We either have Rubicante or the Elements, and it looks like it is Rubicante, so that is going to be an interesting fight here.
Meanwhile, we do have a little more crossover from all the other characters. While Obda does this, does Vesk wish to read a donation or two?
Absolutely. We have a $200 donation here from Big Fong Balls, who says, need to shout out my boys Khobahi, Rivers, and Obda, and the waifu Neerrm. Glad to see you guys tear it up at AGDQ. I'm just sad the best Zero Mist sprite isn't going to make it. P.S. shoutouts to our boy Blecky. Here's a $250 donation from Bahamut X, who says, Final Fantasy IV was my first RPG growing up and is still one of my favorites. Playing Free Enterprise has made me fall in love with it even more. Good luck to the racers, and remember, there's always value at Cave Bahamut.
We hope so. So we do have, we didn't have very much luck with the first try at Rubicante, but now we have 2 runners at Rubicante with Khobahi following closely behind. So they are choosing, it looks like this is going to be one of the necessary paths to go, or one of the ones they're certainly going to try to go. So hopefully someone has some success here.
It's kind of funny. We usually talk about the bottleneck that happens at Upper Babel when you try to go through those 2 bosses, but Boardface has given us a seed tonight where roadblocks at Football, roadblocks here on Ordeals. I wonder who's going to break through first.
Absolutely, and the way this flag set is set up, there are safeties in place, so certain bosses won't actually do an absolute bottleneck. However, the Rubicante on Mount Ordeals is not one of those bosses, so it passes right through that safety check.
Yeah. While we're talking about bosses too, it's worth pointing out that even though the locations of the bosses within the dungeons has all been shuffled along with their stats, kind of taking on the stats of the boss location they're replacing. The AI scripts and then like strengths and weaknesses is unchanged. So like Rubicante will counters with a full party fire too after every hit. So that he was still doing that there. Ooh.
Oh, that is not nice. For those who are unfamiliar with that boss, that is Wyvern, one of the moon bosses who initially starts with a mega nuke on your entire party. So that is a nope situation.
How much do you really want to be a paladin, Cecil?
Yeah.
How much?
Unless you can outspeed that initial mega nuke with damage, or have some sort of wall item or wall spell, that is just not doable at this time. So our racers will have to come back.
And because the Mylon Z boss location is a guaranteed back attack, it is very, very unlikely that they'll be able to outspeed it to get a wall item off too.
Well, Boardface has gifted us with a couple of safety checks that may help out here. Netara did already mention that certain bosses won't gate your only route to the underground. Wyvern is definitely one of them, but also Starveils are guaranteed to be for sale in the overworld. And finally, Wyvern takes an extra turn to get that mega nuke off at the back attack spot. So one of our enterprising racers may be able to get that Starveil off and get through this roadblock.
And Starveils, for those who are unavailable or who don't know, is an item which grants the wall spell, so it will reflect those spells back, so definitely very useful. Neerrm using the strategy of turning his encounters back on in order to get some extra levels to hopefully help with some of these bosses, and I don't think that'll be enough for Wyvern, but we'll see. So it's likely that our racers now are going to explore around, checking for items certainly, but pretty soon we're likely going to see someone get the hovercraft and bring it over to the Eblan Cave in order to check for those characters.
I believe that's a duplicate Cecil sighting at the bed in Kaipo, which is it's a character that you can get for turning in the Sand Ruby key item. But in this version of Free Enterprise, duplicate characters do nothing, basically. So Cecil's long-lost twin right there is going to stay in bed for the rest of the race.
Most definitely. So I think we probably have time while we're doing some item searching here to fit in another couple donations.
Okay, here is a $100 donation from Chloe, who says, shout out to Final Fantasy IV, the game that made me think medio was a real word for most of my childhood. And then Kugelberg with a $100 donation said, thanks to the Free Enterprise community for making my favorite RPG even more favoriter.
Now, we did just mention the Star Veils and how they were guaranteed on the overworld, and we have in fact found them. So we are going to see some of our runners, once they do find those Star Veils, heading back to Mount Ordeals to try Wyvern again, which is exactly what Rivers is doing.
And meanwhile, Khobahi is actually peeking here at the Vanilla Mist Dragon spot. Although you will not earn a key item there, we're currently using a flag set that does not let you get characters from the freebie spots where you normally get, just walk into Mysidia and get the twins, things like that. But you also don't get a free key item from Edward in bed in Troya. So Khobahi's hunting for maybe a wandering Mist Dragon who does give you that key item in this version of Free Enterprise.
There's nothing worse than having a seed and thinking you're completely blocked, but finding out that Mist Dragon was just at some inconsequential spot, just hiding that item.
Rivers challenging this Wyvern again. Let's see if he shows us how it's done, gets the run buffer off, a tech used in the vanilla speed runs, and there's the Star Veils.
Absolutely. So run buffering, for those who are unfamiliar, the ATB, the time system for these battles, does pause when any sort of message is up. So by attempting to run in an unrunnable battle and then using a command during that time, it allows you to kind of sneak a command in. So River's making very nice work of that and still keeping 2 characters alive for that extra experience.
And then now that that's out of the way, we have one more boss to fight in the location where you normally fight Dark Knight Cecil. And this is generally a fairly easy fight just because it's got the lowest stats of the 3, but you never know what's out there.
Very, very rarely something mean sits there.
At least we know it won't be Wyvern this time.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Okay, and we have gone a ribbon, which is just a treasure piece. Because we have opened the key item locations to include optional bosses like the summon bosses and the moon bosses, it does mean some of these key item spots are just going to contain treasure. So the ribbon is a very good item, however. So...
Speaking of rude bosses to find at this spot, it's cutscene time. A little longer than usual.
So why is this fight so rude, Invenerable?
Well, Golbez's script, unchanged from, well, changed slightly just because to fit with whatever party you may have. He's going to summon a shadow dragon. It's going to eat all but 2 members of your party. Then it's going to go away, and finally you'll get to start taking actions. But he'll be casting high-tier magic at you the entire time. So good thing Rivers has a few extra Star Veils here, just in case he can't get that 1,000 HP of damage in before Golbez wipes his team.
In the meantime, Neerrm has gone back and decided to pick up the Spoony Bard and also raid a little bit of treasure on the way. So perhaps Edward will be the key to all of this.
One of the interesting things about this randomizer is you tend to see a lot of kind of item locations you wouldn't in the vanilla, because why would you check for those couple of treasure chests? In the vanilla game, they have nothing of value. So, but they could be hiding something very useful. So definitely common to see in the randomizer.
Obda, meanwhile, has had enough of these overworld bosses, doesn't want any of that Wyvern, no Valvalus, not even going to go check Twin Heart for us yet until he at least sees this character in Eblin Cave.
Yeah, and one thing to note about Eblin Cave is there is exactly 1 trap chest in here. So if you come in here searching your treasure too early and you haven't saved, you could take an early wipe. However, it is another really good chance to get some extra experience from the enemies in that chest. Plus, all of the trap chests have greater than normal items, so you definitely want those.
Yeah, and then the way trap chests work in this version of Free Enterprise 2 is that they are randomly shuffled within the same dungeon that they're in the normal game. So our runners do know that there is one and only one trap chest in Cave Eblon and the town area, potentially too, that has 2 stale men in it.
Obda does find some interesting gear for sale, and he actually does make the weapon shop check here along with the item shop. The item shop having Bacchus wines, a wonderful J item that lets you auto-cast Berserk on yourself. We'll get into a little bit of why Berserk strats are so valuable later on in the seed, but also finds the Black or Deathbringer sword for Dark Knight Cecil. If you can't get a paladin, at least get the best weapon possible for your Dark Knight.
Absolutely. Having a very nice Dark Knight-ish palette on our Paladin Cecil, actually. Looking very stylish. Okay, and while we have a bit of a walk checking some of these treasure chests and doing our walk to the character, I actually think we can fit another donation or two.
All right, here is Mr. Jack Skellington donating $444.44. They said, here's some 4s for my favorite Final Fantasy growing up. Looking forward to seeing what madness awaits in this race. Best of luck to all the runners. FF hype! Thank you, Jack. Yeah, I don't think the race is disappointed so far. And then just Henry H. here donating $1,000. They said, such a rude seed. Good luck to the runners, but I've got to cheer on FF4 on this one. Put this toward the winner of the race's choice.
And then Neerrm taking down Wyvern there, and before the fight, he used a strategy where he actually lowered his battle speed all the way down to 6, and that's because he knew he was going to be fighting the Wyvern here, and that as long as just one of his characters gets a Star Veil off to reflect Mega Nuke, then the battle is won. So that lowering down the battle speed maximizes his chances to get into his item menu fast enough.
Yeah, a really excellent strategy for those sort of really speed-dependent bosses.
Khobahi following suit here, getting the Star Veil off, going to be getting through his Wyvern as well. It's kind of interesting how our racers did go to ordeals a little sooner rather than checking all those item shops, and although those Star Veils are guaranteed, they didn't have them yet, having to wander around a bit to get through this red block.
However, Obdajr is finding the character in Eblan Cave and is not disappointed, as it is the Dragoon Kane, who is a very, very good character in this randomizer.
Speaking of exciting things, we do see that riversmccown is heading into Cave Magnus, which I think there was a little donation incentive involved with that.
Just
Board,
a
you
little.
want to tell us a little bit about what we're about to get to savor here?
Yes, so that magical twin harp that we received right at the start here is a quest item for this particular quest. It's used to break the spell of the Dark Elf by when Edward plays the song in his hospital bed. It resonates to the twin harp and plays in here. Usually it's just Edward's theme, a very simple lute melody. For the randomizer, we decided to have a little fun with it, and usually when you play, you get a random harp song instead. Maybe he'll play the theme from Tetris. Maybe he'll play some Dr. Mario. It's different every time. This time we know exactly what's going to be because you all donated for it. It will be a selection from some Zelda game, and it'll be coming up very shortly on Rivers' stream.
Speaking of those quality of life increases with how we are able to toggle encounters on and off in this seed, definitely makes your walk through Cave Magnus a lot safer than it was in the vanilla game.
No more bat back attacks.
Interesting divergence in strategy as well. Although both Neerrm and Khobahi are chasing Rivers at this point, heading through ordeals, trying to get their paladins, Opta has opted to just grind on monsters in Upper Babel. He's going to try to get his levels here, and counter blasters from the Black Cats, taking his party out though.
So before we actually have the shuffled boss fight in the Dark Elves location, we do have this kind of glorified cutscene here with the normal Dark Elf sprite, and in this, kind of the goal is to lose as quickly as possible by either having characters equip metallic stuff or cast like high damage spells on themselves.
Yeah, best case scenario is to come into this battle and be dead immediately.
I believe some of our community racers have actually managed to beat that fight now, but it still just leads you into the exact same cutscene.
Okay, Edward, what beautiful tune do you have for us today? And again, thank you so much for donating for this.
And we have Telltale Heights from The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, one of my personal favorites, actually.
Excellent rendition of a two-board. Very well done.
Oh, don't thank me. Thank the person who sequenced the MIDI that I took it from.
And who was Dark Elf all along?
We shall soon see. Oh, it was the Baron Guards all along.
Yeah, this is normally a pretty simple fight, just because these guards do not have what we call the boss bits. They're susceptible to a wide variety of cheese strats, like using an hourglass to cast stop on them, using like a coffin to just inflict instant death, casting the stone spell.
And And of course, with the granularity of the settings in Free Enterprise, if you want to make them harder, if you don't want to be able to cheese them, you can do that. You can make the flags as insufferable or as easy as you prefer.
I believe we are seeing some siren usage by Khobahi right now too, just to raise his levels a bit by summoning this double Lilith encounter, which is basically the highest experience encounter you can get just purely on the overworld without entering Cave Eblon.
Unfortunately, there was more treasure waiting for Rivers. It is really excellent gear for, I believe, for Edge, but yeah, not what he was looking for whatsoever. But please, enjoy the music.
Yeah. He did give the fans what they wanted, so we at least have that going for the cave.
Yeah. So now that Kane has been found, I am kind of curious if any of our runners are going to decide to go back to Fabuel Castle to fight Valvolus now that they have a way to get her out of tornado form.
Yeah, that would be a really great idea. You either need high enough accuracy to be able to hit her within tornado form, or Kane, who can stop her spin.
And Obda, unfortunately, having taken that wipe while grinding in Upper Babel earlier, does have to do a little bit of shopping a second time, picking up those Bacchus wines, but ignoring the Darkness Sword, Black Sword this time.
Looks like we are going to have a second Twin Harp from Khobahi, also making his way to get that Black Chocobo. And then Obda is working his way back through the Cave Eblon.
I'm curious, like you said, if any of our racers upon seeing that Kane will immediately make that connection and go back. It has been a while since any of them saw the Val fight. It could just be in the back of their minds, especially after having to deal with Wyvern and Golbez. So it could be the huge break that someone needs to crack the seed wide open. We'll have to see.
Absolutely. And so many of our racers have had the hook for so long as well, though. It's probably sitting on their mind of, I need to get underground as soon as possible. Usually the instant you get either moon or underground progression, you know you need to get there as soon as possible, because that is often where the seed is taking you. Not always, but often. Okay, we have Neerrm finishing up that Mylon fight in Baron Inn, so he will also be getting his hook now, and Yang.
Well, we do have a little bit of crossover. If there are a couple more donations, we'd love to hear them.
All right, here is $100 from Nitz here from the Final Fantasy I randomizer dev team. Final Fantasy is my favorite series of all time, and my father is a cancer survivor due to early detection made possible by research funded by groups like Prevent Cancer Foundation. I love seeing a free enterprise race at a GDQ, and looking forward to the day that an FF1 randomizer race can help contribute to this great cause. Thank you, Nitz.
Also, if you didn't know about that little invisible walkway over to that treasure chest, don't worry, neither did most of us.
Certainly blew my mind when I first saw that.
Yeah. There's been a lot of things which have been discovered about the vanilla game through folks experimenting through the different situations we get in the randomizer, which have just been completely mind-blowing. Yeah. So it's been really great for the development of that vanilla game as well.
Yeah. It's worth pointing out, too, that we did get through this cutscene with Kane joining up, we do get a somewhat of a peek at who one of the bosses that needs to be defeated in order to get to the underworld through the Tower of Babel is. And I say sort of because all of the optional bosses normally found in the Lunar Subterrane, the final dungeons, share this kind of twinkling star for them. We have already seen Wyvern on Mount Ordeals. We know that that's out of play, but it could be a number of other bosses, like maybe Pale Dim, maybe Ogopogo, or the Lunar Dragons.
Or maybe even Plague.
Oof.
Huge shout out to the tech team for giving us an encore, by the way, as Khobahi gets his Twin Harp activated.
And we're about to get yet another one from Neerrm.
Never too much harp.
You gotta give the donators what they want.
Absolutely.
And we, in the location it is in the normal game too, we have the Mad Ogre chest on Obda's side. This is a very lucrative encounter just because the Mad Ogres are susceptible to being stopped by an hourglass, along with just taking a ton of damage from specific types of weapons effective against giants too. And then doing that combined with a minor glitch where using a life item on a dying enemy doubles the experience and money from the kill can produce a lot of experience quickly from just this one encounter.
And you might notice on Rivers' screen, it looked like that he was picking up an item twice. What that was is each one of the item windows has the option to press the R button in order to discard the item immediately. However, so long as you don't leave the screen, you can actually go back to that chest and pick up the item. So often our runners are just discarding items immediately, and when they see something they want, they just immediately pick it up again, so they keep that.
Yeah, just like Puwexil said earlier, you do have limited inventory space, and with this kind of flag set where there's so much good gear, it can be really difficult to pick and choose what you actually want to hold on to versus what you need to sell versus what you just need to throw back in the garbage.
Okay, Obdajr is getting through his trap chest fight just fine, while Rivers is choosing to also join him in the upper Tower of Babel. So it won't be long before we will be seeing both of the bosses.
One of my favorite things with our view of the racers, of course, is seeing that look on their face when they do get just the ninja shirt for completing. Keep an eye on Neerrm coming up here and see if you can see that a moment of realization.
Yeah, you may have noticed some head shaking when they got the hook too, just because that's often not a good sight.
Not at all.
Even when you get the hook and you know that you now have a way to the underworld, a lot of the times you'll just complete the overworld as much as you can because you really want to find that magma key because it's just so much easier than going through the hook route.
Yeah, you drop the magma key down a well in a gart, and it just busts open a mountain, and you can fly right to the underground. You don't have to go through a cave. You don't have to go through a tower. There's no bosses. You're just underground. So you definitely would rather get that magma key rather than finding it someplace really convenient like underground.
I'm still keeping my fingers crossed that it's actually that Val fight.
Oh.
So anyone who takes that cane and runs.
Yeah, that could be something to put them ahead.
Vanilla King and Queen Evelyn. Don't think we have a lot to worry about in this fight, do we?
No, this is an easy fight, even in the vanilla. And oh, wait. This is the vanilla location. So this is just a story fight. They will do a few attacks, but then they will regain consciousness and the battle is over. There are certain flag sets where you do have to fight even the optional story fights for real, but this is not such a flag set. So thankfully, this is an easy fight, an easy out, and they get a free cure after this fight, so.
Yeah.
There it is.
There's the face.
One of my favorite things about Free Enterprise is that it does give us a lot of insight into things in the original game that you may not have realized playing through it as a child. We didn't see it here with this King, Queen, and Evelyn fight, but they turn out to have a really high physical attack power. So if you fight a boss here that actually uses physical attacks, you're having a much harsher time getting underground. All our racers will breathe a huge sigh of relief seeing them here.
Yeah, you are not having a good day if you have something like Antlion in that spot. Something which is like early game easy boss suddenly becomes an absolute like party destroying monster.
Speaking of party-destroying monsters,
Ooh.
I'm hoping this lunar boss is terrifying.
Yeah.
Obda's running.
Yeah, I see Obda choosing to grab a quick safety save before actually doing that fight, just so that if he does die, he's not going to have to sit through the King and Queen Evelyn cutscenes again.
Yeah, with the save point that close, it is a very good idea.
Along with the accelerated movement and Free Enterprise, too.
Another quality of life addition added by Board.
Yeah, you'll see people taking that safety save usually either after a long cutscene fight or after a really terrible fight. So won't surprise me to see a lot of our racers take advantage of that.
Right. Oh, got Plague. Plague's kind of an interesting boss just because it never directly attacks you, but its first action is always to use this count ability, which gives your whole party a 10-unit death counter, basically. And then if any of your characters ever do not have that status, it will do it again and again and again and again. So when Plague is in a very high health position like this, because this is Rubicante's location, which has almost 25,000 hit points, there's pretty much no way that Obda is going to actually be able to defeat Plague before the timer runs out. So he's trying to set up an AI loop where he defeats one of his own characters and then revives them, which causes Plague to cast Count again, and then that will actually reset the counter all the way up to 10 on the whole party. It is a little unfortunate that it's in this particular spot because that free heal you get going into it kind of takes away your ability to to lower the HP of one of your characters going in.
Yeah,
This may prove a little difficult if he doesn't have like a kamikaze item or any
Edward.
kind of spellcaster too.
or Arby's. So in this case, what he did is he did switch it so Arby's was sitting in the front row, making him much more privy to being taking those physical attacks, and they are going to try and take care of Arby's immediately.
And speaking of those J items, yeah, we did see Abba scrolling through his inventory looking for either the kamikaze item, which causes a character to do their current HP and damage and go into swoon status instantly, which very quick way to get someone knocked down and back up with a life potion. Coffins are also pretty useful for that, but he didn't seem to find either one in our overworld shops today, making this plague fight even ruder than normal.
Okay, getting that count out. But with Kane in the air, when that count goes, it means he will still be at 0 when he lands.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Neerrm is choosing to loot Castle Eblon. There's no bosses or key item locations in Castle Eblon, but there is a lot of treasure and a couple of trap chests too, worth decent experience. So this is a decent way to level up if you you have hook seed bosses to fight.
Yeah, and you could be lucky to find another one of our endgame like armor, such as the adamant armor, usually only gotten through the pink tail item, which is incredibly rare in the vanilla version. It is the best armor in the game.
This will be interesting to see Rivers doing this fight. He doesn't have the really low HP Edward or Arby's like Opta does, and with also having one fewer character means it's going to be a little trickier to keep a character dead, a character alive, getting that timer reset. But he's using an alternate strat now, trying to reflect the countability onto Plague. Depending on the agility situation of the fight, that will stick, and Plague will ultimately count itself down and fall prey to its own doom.
And it does mean that the character who had that reflect did not re-get that count. So Plague will continue trying until every character does have that count on. Looks like Khobahi.
Yeah, so it looks like both of them know what they're doing as far as the Plague fight. It's just going to take a while because of how much health the Plague has in this location.
And having to devote a portion of your DPS to your own team rather than being able to focus it like you could on most bosses in the game.
Absolutely. So while they go through this fight, while Khobahi works on the trap chest and comes up the tower to join them, and while Neerrm continues his exploration of the Eblin Castle, we should be able to fit in a couple more donations.
All right, and may I just say how welcoming and wonderful you all in the Free Enterprise community must be? Because I have a lot of comments here to that effect. We got a $250 donation from Ground Flyer who says, I'm so happy to see Free Enterprise get shown on such a big stage. Shout out to everyone involved, and especially the whole Free Enterprise community who are so fun and inclusive. This is such a great cause. And then $100 here from Moonblaze Wolf, who says, I'm so excited that Free Enterprise was included in AGDQ this year. It's an amazing game with an amazing community. Good luck to all the runners and kick cancer's butt tonight. And then Arborelia donated $100. They said, I don't even play this game and I love its community. Good luck to all the runners.
With all this high praise for the community, Boardbase, if someone wants to be a part of Free Enterprise, what should they do?
Well, Free Enterprise can be found at its website, ff4fe.com. From there, you can find a link to the randomizer itself, a bunch of resources to get you started and detailed information, and also, most importantly, a link to our Discord server, where our Free Enterprise community convenes and congregates, and it's such an amazing, welcoming place. I feel really fortunate to have this community.
Yeah, another great thing about Free Enterprise too is just how customizable it is too, because the what we call flag settings are just kind of customization choices that are being used for this race for Awesome Games Done Quick are kind of designed to be kind of a medium difficulty, but still with a guarantee of completion in a pretty reasonable time frame. But if you choose, you can make it either much more beginner friendly or you can make it well nigh impossible too.
And many people do. So we also have weekly races, multiple of them for different time zones, and just all the time there's casual races happening. Lots of people interested in racing all the time. So, and even if you just want to come into the Discord and hang out.
All right, and at 40 minutes, with the defeat of Plague, we have Rivers as our first runner gaining access to the underground.
So we're about to see a lot of deviation from our racers. We do have Rivers breaking through. Obda will be there soon. Khobahi's on the first fight here, and Neerrm is racing through the cave. It'll be interesting to see how they diverge underground. It's our next big, real open area to chase a lot of different paths to a lot of different key item locations.
Yeah, there's a few different spots where you can just get key items or potential key items right away. But there are some locations which, while you could go in to get a key item, they also take a key item in that item spot itself. So you don't want to have to re-enter a place. So they're going to be looking for those particular items before entering those spots if they can.
Yeah.
And keeping in mind, Fabul is still there and has not been fought. Leaving that behind could be bad for all of our runners, or it could just be another treasure item. So we will see or not.
Yeah. Speaking of seeing, too, we did have Rivers opting to peek, what we call peeking the Dr. Luge boss location while he was passing briefly through the lower Tower of Babel, and we saw that it was Mom Bomb.
So not a freebie, but not too difficult either. It's definitely something that you don't have to overly concern yourself before heading up the tower, but we would still like to see the tower key. That way you can get both the potential key item checks in one go.
Yeah, you can fight in the Luge spot. You can access that just with access to the underground, but with the tower key, it gives you access to the super cannon area, which gives you a second key item potential. So, however, Rivers has chosen to go into the land of the summoned monsters, the Feymarch, which does have one key item chest, which contained the rat tail in the vanilla game. We will see shortly what it contains here for us today.
Yeah, and in this flag setting, too, in addition to for key items, in addition to being in the location of other key items in the normal game, can also be held by certain optional bosses, namely the summon quests, which includes here Ashura and Leviathan on the bottom floor here, and also the optional bosses on the moon too. There's one in Bahamut's cave, and then quite a few others in the lunar subterrane.
So the item that Rivers did pick up is the Adamant, and usually combined with the Legend Sword they have already received, it will provide them with the Excalibur Sword, which usually they would leave behind, but where some of our runners, Rivers included, does have Paladin Cecil, that is his one of his best weapons.
I believe it's the second most damaging weapon in the game.
Yeah,
so,
for the Crystal Sword.
although our kind donators really thought Dark Knight Cecil would be more of a hindrance at the start, that Paladin Cecil is going to do a lot of damage for all our racers who chose to get him. Meanwhile, Rivers is taking a peek at both those Asura and Leviathan spots. Very high-level, strong bosses, but there are methods that let you get through them even at a lower level than you may expect.
Yeah, he's deciding what to do here. So we actually have a little bit of a swap here with Ashura in the Leviathan location.
Rivers is very glad he had to find those Starvels earlier to get through Wyvern and ultimately Gulpez. They are going to be a lifesaver in this fight as well. Yeah,
because the kind of the fastest and safest way to fight Ashura is to get a wall on her, so that when she casts, because she kind of rotates through Cure 4, Cure 3, and Life 1, depending on which head is rotated in front of her sprite. And if you get a wall on her, either by casting the spell or using 2 Moon Veils or Star Veils, the second of which reflects back, then she'll stop healing herself and start healing you instead.
Rivers just holding his controller upside down. I believe he did something a little out of order there. I believe he intended, after the Moon Veil, to use the Star Veil to reflect the wall spell onto Asura. Does not have that on her right now, so she will still be healing herself. And luckily, though, the Moon Veil, unlike the Star Veil, also offers a barrier status, so Sid can't be hit with her melees. The question is, can his Rune Axe out-DPS her healing at this point?
With that Cure 4, that is definitely a very important question.
Yeah, because Ashura doesn't only counterattacks as far as how she can hurt you. And we see Rivers just deciding he just needs to either set up a little bit differently or leave and come back later before trying to
I'm surprised
try
with the
that
exit.
fight again.
He had the strat. He just clicked the one item a little too soon.
Yeah,
but
we did also see that in the Ashura boss spot we had Dark Knight Cecil, which right here is an absolutely brutal fight because of how fast and hard hitting his dark waves are. I mean, in the mode we're playing, I mean, that can be a free fight just because you only have to survive 3 dark waves, then the fight just automatically ends. But in this location, even surviving 2 dark waves may be pretty troublesome.
It'll do roughly 800 damage per hit, and even his really high health Sid is not rocking enough HP to pull that off.
And I don't think anyone has the speed to get a curative item off in time in between those dark waves.
However, Rivers did just find Cure 3 potions in the item shop in Tamra, which will be really important since we have not seen a mage yet. This is a very melee-heavy party.
Yeah, you definitely want to try and find a white mage of some sort, even one of the lower grade ones, if you could. But if you can find a good location of items, sometimes our runners will choose not to take that white mage if they find them too late.
All right, and down goes Plague for Khobahi.
Rivers is visiting the blacksmith, taking advantage of that combination, Legend Sword and Adamant, going to very vastly increase his Paladin Cecil's damage at this rate.
There is a mode of the randomizer where you actually need to combine the Legend Sword and the Adamant in order to gain the crystal. However, that is not the mode we're playing here, but that would be really great for him if we were.
Yeah, typically uninteresting items if you don't have Paladin Cecil. There are some other quality of life features our racers are enjoying here. Unlike the vanilla game, experience points are not being split amongst the party members, and if they do get up to 10 key items, as indicated on your trackers there, they will start receiving double experience from fights on top of that.
Absolutely. And to note, when you do turn in those items to get your Excalibur, you also do get access to another shop, which could have just any item. Like, it does not count in the general shop randomization, so you can get quite good items there. And there was a lunar staff in that shop, which is the best staff in the game generally. So one of the best staffs. So if they end up with a mage character, that could be something to remember.
Although since we have seen Cure 3s for sale, that does make us wonder if we are ever going to see a white mage, just because part of the logic for this version of Free Enterprise does guarantee that Cure 3 potions are for sale somewhere in the world if a white mage doesn't exist.
And speaking of some of our deviations, it looks like all of our runners are going different paths, with Khobahi choosing to go to one of the common leveling up areas. If you go to that little peninsula and use a siren, you summon an egg, which when killed, even without 10 key items, will give you 34,000 experience, which is quite a lot. We have Rivers, who's going into the dwarf castle, who is going to fight the dull spot, which is the dark elf. And it looks like Obdajr has gone down into the Sylph Cave without the pen, though, so he may need to return to that cave, but that has opened up a key item in Fabul, which he will have to complete to access from Yang's wife.
That may be good motivation for him also to go back and handle that Valvalus fight, doing both at once, although you may still have to come back after getting the pen and bunking Yang with it. Still, 2 spots that none of our other racers have checked.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And the Dark Elf being a pretty trivial fight for Rivers with the Excalibur too, just because of being weak to the Holy Element, which the Excalibur has. Because again, even though the boss locations have been shuffled, their weaknesses have not.
Absolutely, and once Dark Elf changes into its dragon form, it actually loses the boss bit no matter where it's sitting. So it suddenly becomes weak to any number of status ailments, making it not too bad. Now, is this fight going to be the Water Hag or the Fabul Gauntlet? Let us see. Ooh. However, the character which has showed up is the Ninja Edge.
Someone to wear that shirt that they found back in Cave Magnus.
So that
And we see the Water Hag, which it's basically a freebie because the fight will end after 3 hits, although might be a little disappointing to see that in a pretty kind of low hit point boss location like this, though, because then we know it's not going to be waiting for us later.
Sadly, Arby's is not with us, but Anna would really like Arby's to keep fighting. Okay, Obdajr has gone to the same spot, and Neerrm has reached Plague and is doing the same sort of strat. And it is time for Khobahi to also peek at the bosses in the Feymarch.
And then for Rivers to get a key item, which is the final prize for full clearing the Dwarf Castle.
At this point, our racers are undoubtedly starting to consider some of their options. We've still not seen a White Mage, no Porum, no Rosa, and no Fusoya. Starting to look like those Bacchus wines, and we're going to have just a party of berserkers trying to take down most of these fights going forward.
Absolutely. Something to note is where we do also have the glitches, most of the glitches turned off in this mode. We cannot use the warp spell just to teleport into that crystal room and get that key item. However, we are going to get something.
Yes, and at 50 minutes, we now have all 4 of our players with access to the underworld.
Okay, the item Rivers received is the Earth Crystal. That gives him access not only to the treasure hoard in Toroya, it does also give him access to the Tower of Zot, which contains 2 new characters and a key item. So that...
If anybody's also... Everybody knows there's a limit of 5 characters in Final Fantasy IV, and if anybody's wondering what happens if you get a 6th, you actually get to choose whether to, whether to dismiss the new character you found or to replace someone you already have.
So Khobahi took an attempt on Dark Knight Cecil there, did not manage to break through, and is just going to exit and come back later. That is a nasty boss to find in that position.
I am a little sad to see no one trying to use Edward strats there. Although he doesn't have enough HP to survive, if he can just hide before the first Dark Wave comes out, that fight's completely free.
Absolutely. Edward is generally not very good, but there are just a couple of boss fights where he is absolutely invaluable. And that Dark Knight Cecil fight can be one of them. Looks like Khobahi is also choosing to turn in his Adamant and Legend Sword in order to get his Excalibur.
We are getting a little bit of crossover at this point. Obdajr finishing up Dwarf Castle, Rivers making that Sylph Cave dive. That would be a great time for a few more donations.
All right, here's a $50 donation from Slayer, and they're out there enjoying the run because they say, I enjoy randomizers and am surprised I never knew Final Fantasy IV had one. I can't wait to see what it's like. Also have another $50 coming in here from Velociraptor42 and Storm. And they say, this is such a great randomizer and we're happy to see it get some love at AGDQ. There couldn't be a better group to represent the community and we wish we could be there cheering you on in person. I'll throw it back to you guys with a question here. $100 donation coming in from Tabletop Tap. And they ask, where do you guys stand on the controversial Final Fantasy argument, Work versus Quay?
Why must they fight? Can't we just love both?
I thought the official stance was that one is for chocobos found in the wild and the other is for domesticated ones, right?
Oh.
I've more viewed it as just what kind of a mood the chocobo is in at the time as far as what noises it makes. All right, so we do have Rivers drilling out of the underworld and going to take his Dragoon to fight Valvalis now, which should be pretty simple between having Kain and also and having the Excalibur too, along with more levels than the last time he was here.
Yeah, this should be a much, much nicer fight than previous. Probably a bit of a joke, actually.
Another note is that you will see some of our racers quickly stopping by the Naming Way locations to fulfill yet another one of your donation incentives. As required, thanks to your donations, their final team at this Romus fight must be named Machine, Arby's, Shiny, Reed, and Cannon.
So while we did have the option to name our characters preemptively, you of course never know which ones you're going to find as we go. So they did the best they could, but once they have that party they've decided to stick with, then it's time to head to a Naming Way to finalize the selection.
And then Neerrm fighting some more yellow dragon eggs for some quick experience, and also showing off another quality of life improvement in Free Enterprise, which is combined level up messages. Because normally when you gain multiple levels off the same fight, it tells you gained a level one at a time, but Boardface just kind of condensed it all into one text per character.
Absolutely. So River's finally going through that fight, and it turns out the item which was sitting in Fabul is the pink tail. So that can be turned in in a certain cave, and then you can get the Adamant Armor, as mentioned earlier, the best item in the game. And speaking of vanilla, Sheila, who is Yang's wife, has given us the pen, which is what she gives us in that spot in the vanilla game. So that is used to wake Yang up very gently from his nap in the underground.
Yes, that'll allow him to full clear the Sylph Cave, because there's a total of 3 potential key items there. One of which you can get just with access to the underground, but the other two do require using the pan on Yang.
You'll get the first one as soon as you bonk him. The Sylphs will give you, in the vanilla game, their summon. This will, of course, be randomized, although the pan wasn't, so we'll see. And then you can finally visit Sheila yet again. How many trips to Fabul is this? You get the last one in the chain.
Not enough.
You know it's a good seed when you don't actually clear the full gauntlet spot until 54 minutes in, I believe.
Oh, most certainly. So by coming back into the Sylph Cave, that will actually give us access to 2 key items. By waking Yang up, these Sylphs very gratefully will give us a key item, hopefully. And then Sheila, once the pen is returned, will give us another. So that is definitely a good opportunity.
We did also see a dark matter found by Rivers in Fabul Castle too, which is just kind of a troll item. Basically, it consumes a spot in your inventory and otherwise does nothing.
Luckily, though, I do believe the latest version that came out just this week has removed that from the treasure pool. You don't have to worry about that any longer.
Thank goodness. You cannot actually remove it, or you could not actually remove it from your inventory once it was there, and it was forced you to pick it up.
Yeah, and we get the Luca key there, which gives access to the sealed cave, which is kind of an interesting place because it's a key item location, but the boss fight there in place of Evil Wall is fought after getting the key items. So a lot of times runners will dive down into the sealed cave to see what the prize is and if it's worth actually fighting a boss or not, because if not, they can just reset back to a save they made outside.
I will note, by the way, that Rivers actually exercised some great self-control here. A lot of times, if you find that pink tail and you already have a hook, you're immediately thinking adamant armor, adamant armor, adamant armor. But he's not seen the rat tail yet. And if he can find it as part of this pan chain, he can...
We promise we have not seen this seed before.
he can save him a trip into the adamant grotto.
Because the rat tail, which normally you trade for the adamant, instead becomes another key item, and then the pink tail becomes the adamant armor, which is not a key item, but is the best armor in the game by a lot. It gives the best defensive stats, along with raising all other stats by 15. And any character in the game can equip it, so it's very useful for a lot of situations.
He does need to swap out his airships, though, because the red airship from the underground does not actually have the hook on it. So you do need to pick up the correct airship in order to ferry around your ever-trusty hovercraft.
And although we did note earlier that a lot of the Japanese items have been added back into the game, just because you never saw the adamant armor in your childhood doesn't mean it was already there.
I was convinced the adamant armor was a myth when I played this game as a kid, too, just because of how sillily obscure it is.
Absolutely, but if you can find it here, and some of the easy seeds, you can get a party full of adamant armors, and those are definitely nice. Oh.
And we get the package, too, which does not lead to key items, but it does lead to a character and if you take it to Village Mist, along with a boss fight, too, which at this point it would be probably a one-shot. And since the Mist Dragon has not been seen yet, and defeating the Mist Dragon does lead to a key item, we may at some point see a runner go check out that package fight.
However, most of the time a runner will try to avoid using the package just because the amount of cutscenes you have to sit through to get that character and get to that fight are so long.
However, we still have not seen a white mage, but with that earth crystal sitting in River's inventory, I'd be inclined to check there first before going through Mist and Kaipo in search of one.
Yeah, and I mean, it wouldn't take a whole lot of time to just peek at who the package character is, too, because all they'd have to do is just step into town, and then they see the sprite, and if they don't like it, they reset. It does take a few minutes of cutscenes to actually see what the boss is, though.
Taking note of that melee-heavy party, we do see Rivers making another dive into the Eblin Cave. There's not going to be any more characters' key items here, but those Bacchus wines are for sale. Berserking a character is amazing in Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise. Not only do you deal bonus damage, you take your actions instantly without having to wait for the menu to come up, drastically increasing your DPS in any fight.
Definitely a good item to find anywhere. In chests, you get a couple, but yeah, if you can find those in a shop somewhere, that is ideal. So we do have Khobahi going back to Fabul, taking his turn at Valvalis, so he can get his gear.
Obda finding sufficient motivation and forging that Excalibur to go finally get his Paladin. If you're going to give me the second best sword in the game, sure, let's do Ordeals.
And Neerrm is going to be our first runner who is doing the Tower of Zot, which, as mentioned earlier, does have 2 new characters and a key item. Plus, if you have Rosa, she will learn the exit spell.
Also, I believe, just back to the package for a second, too, if anybody does go there, I believe we will have a little bit of fun to be had, too, via randomization of the package contents.
That is correct. Another purely cosmetic change, but incredibly delightful. Okay.
Finding Mylon Z at the Maga Sister spot. Pretty much no overworld boss spots will be any difficulty for our racers at this point. Some of them have grinded. We have found great weaponry. Kane there doing nearly 4,000 damage with a jump. Neerrm's going to be through here in very short order.
This party is a beast for physical damage.
Yeah, he's already gotten multiple hits in before Mylon Z even said his opening spiel, so to point out how difficult this fight will be. Okay, Rivers is heading back into the underground.
Oh, looks like he's going to try to get frisky and go for these Fey March bosses. He does have the strats to take both of them down. May involve a little bit of agility manipulation with his team for the Dark Knight, but Asura, as long as he cues everything up in order, he's going to show us how it's done right here.
However, speaking of showing us how it's done, Neerrm is a very happy camper, finding Fusoya in the Tower of Zot, our first white mage using character that we have found.
Incidentally, also the first black magic using character we have.
Absolutely, which is, and learns all of the spells. Oh, speaking of black magic using characters, unlikely to keep Rydia, but much more likely to keep Fusoya.
Yeah.
One of the settings of these particular flags is that Fusoya only originally comes with 500 HP and 6 randomized spells. And for every boss you fight, he gains 100 more HP and 3 more randomized spells. However, with all of the bosses that Neerrm and the rest of our group have fought so far, he should be fairly near power.
Yeah, it looks like Fusoya will be full power after this next fight he does here. That change is pretty much just made to balance, just because Fusoya is level 50, starts with some of the best gear in the game for mages, and if he also started with his full spell list, if you found him very early in the game, that would be very, very unbalanced.
Although we mentioned earlier, you'll notice the palette swaps that have been recently added thanks to one of our trackers tonight, SchalaKitty. She also will have handcrafted the Zeroma sprite everyone voted for, but that hot pink Rydia, huge fan favorite. Great to see that one in the seed, even if we're not taking her with us.
Yeah, and then Kenazo in the Velvelis spot being disposed of pretty handily by the nuke spell.
And that will bring Fu up to full power. He already knew his full spell set, just 100 more HP for that, but it's still nice to know that he is there and pretty much ready to go to this Aromas fight whenever we do find our crystal and our path to the moon.
Absolutely. Rivers giving another try there to Dark Knight Cecil. We're shortly going to see what our next key item is from the Tower of Zot.
Quickly resetting out to heal up. He does want to have full health going into the fight so that he can quickly do heal of the party or one of his characters as soon as the first Dark Wave comes out, but does need to cap him up first.
So, Bort, do you want to talk about the Darkness Crystal and why it is so exciting that Neerrm has just found it?
The Darkness Crystal in Free Enterprise is used to raise the Big Whale from Mysidia. The Big Whale is the giant airship that gives you access to the moon. The moon is an exciting place. It contains so many more additional boss spots, but it is the endgame area, so they are all very difficult fights, but there's potential to find a lot of items there. There's also another free character sitting in the palace just waiting for you. However, at this point, they may not want to change the party too much because they've already done some grinding. There's also an item shop on the moon, which could provide some important items, although we have seen a lot of the most powerful items in shops already.
Yeah, not much more we're going to find there that we're going to want that we haven't already found.
Although to mention another quality of life change earlier with regard to the experience scaling in the game, you don't have to feel too terribly locked in to the early party you were working with. Anyone lagging behind a certain number of levels from the rest of the party will get double or even triple experience. So it's not too hard to bring someone up if there's someone you really want to add to the party.
Absolutely. And Rivers being the first to kill Dark Knight Cecil. So let us see what item that character was gating. Oh, the Tower Key.
Well, that is motivation. We did mention that you wouldn't really want to run up there without the Tower Key, even though we know it's a reasonable boss fight, the Mom Bomb up there. This definitely gives Rivers incentive to go up there and clear both those birds with one stone.
Absolutely, and also taking out the Ashura spot while he is here and much more prepared. Looks like Neerrm is choosing to summon the Lunar Whale for access on the moon. We will see shortly whether he is just checking out that character or whether he is ready to just skip out on exploring the underground and making the play for the moon.
There is also an additional item shop to be found on the moon too in the Hummingway Cave. Whether players do or don't go there often kind of depends on if there's anything they're just really missing right now, like sirens, star veils, Cure 2s or Cure 3s, so on.
And then another 6 bosses, getting 7 possible key item locations. If you get that Darkness Crystal and you think none of your opponents have it, this is a bit of a gamble to take, leaving the Earth unfinished. But it can be the key to letting Neerrm get this victory.
Absolutely. It is a big debate in the community as to if you have a choice between the underground and the moon, which do you take? So we will definitely see. Right now, checking to see if there is value in Cave Bahamut.
Yeah, Cave Bahamut only having one boss and 1 key item location, but unlike everything in the Lunar Subterrane, you are able to see what the boss is without having to actually fight it.
And we do have a few bosses left in the pool, which do not have the boss bit. So vulnerable to those hourglasses, vulnerable to other status effects. There are plenty here that Neerrm could handle, even being lower level than you would normally be on the moon in a vanilla game.
I do also want to make note that all of our runners, other than Neerrm, it looks like to have reached 10 key items, and with that are now receiving double experience, which is going to help their characters level up to get ready for not only the future bosses, but for the final boss fight with Zeromus.
Neerrm, though, still wanting a few more levels, doing another fantastic grind spot with those sirens. This is one of the lunar floors where you can summon 2 King Ryus or gold dragons. And if you use the life glitch here, 0 vitality, the dragon is revived with 0 HP, immediately dies, and he'll be getting 90,000 XP for this one fight.
Yeah, and if you have a character that can cast the weak spell that turns along with a supply of hourglasses to cast stop, that turns this into one of the most efficient grinding locations in the whole game.
Absolutely, and I do want to note that Obdajr is choosing to finally go and check that Twin Harp item. So we have one last opportunity to hear some wonderful music that, once again, you very graciously donated for. The Ashura's fight is also going much better for Neerrm this time, getting that wall spell on her, bouncing all those spells back.
I believe that Rivers did put the Moon Veil on, well, Shiny, Sid again, so he is immune to the physical attacks. And the Dragoon, Reed, is just rocking that adamant armor, so also not really suffering from these typically very strong physical attacks that Asura responds with.
Absolutely.
All right, and down she goes.
Rivers showing his great mastery of the boss scripts, the strength, the tools in his toolkit, and is rewarded with, well, the best bow in the game.
But currently, no one who can use a bow in the party is going to want to use a bow. They've already got better items, or more effective weapons, I should say.
I'm excited for Neerrm to finish his grind and see who the actual boss here is.
Yeah. Already, those levels are really climbing.
And again, the song that Edward plays on the harp normally is randomized, and finding out what it is often a bit of fun and playing free enterprise. But tonight, this was done by donations. We get Telltale Heights from The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening.
Name that tune is probably one of my favorite parts of any seed. Even after completing it, you kind of feel obligated to run back, find that twin harp, and just play it to enjoy this little Easter egg.
Absolutely. Okay, and Khobahi has now received his Darkness Crystal, being the second runner to gain access to the moon, which is one of the 2 requirements for finishing these seeds. So all of the runners are still looking for the crystal item. It is an absolutely mandatory key item required to allow the parties to actually do damage to the final boss of Zeromus.
River's climbing this tower, making the interesting decision to go ahead and do the tower room first. Sometimes, well, unlocking it first, pardon me, not peeking it quite yet. Tease.
Yeah, because once you've defeated whatever boss is in the super cannon room, you do have to leave the tower before actually getting your key items. So kind of most players generally will go to the top, fight the Dr. Lugay boss location, and then assuming they still are interested in the super cannon, will go down and do that on their way out.
And where the super cannon spot is such a weak spot, originally containing 3 red crabs or dark imps. Dark imps. It makes it quite an easy spot, so not one you worry about if you are still hunting for key items by that point.
And of course, Rivers does still need 2 key items. A couple of our racers have found that Darkness Crystal. Rivers still needs Zeromus access, either in the form of Pass or Darkness, and of course, the crystal itself.
Absolutely. So this is where Neerrm could really get ahead of everyone else if the crystal is in fact hiding on the moon, being the only racer on the moon currently.
Khobahi going to attempt these Fey March bosses as well, will likely be baited into the Tower of Babel, just like Rivers was. But of course, Crystal, Pass could be at these spots, but we do know at least we have 1 way to the moon already.
Yeah, and why is the pass important, by the way? Why is that on our key item tracker? Board face? Do you wanna
Well,
take
the
that?
pass has a different use in Free Enterprise. In the original game, it just opened a little Easter egg area where you go backstage in Troya and you can see this big fancy dance sequence. Here, the pass is actually a shortcut directly to the final boss. It kind of functions like the Lavos bucket when you do a New Game Plus on Chrono Trigger. So it's an item that gives you a second way, a much shorter way to get to the final boss. So you can just zoom in and take him on whenever you feel you're ready.
It's roughly a, 5-minute walk through the lunar core if you don't have it.
Approximately.
And it's a lot easier if you do wipe to Zeromus, then restoring from a save and getting back there with the pass is definitely quicker than making the walk from the last save point in the lunar subterranean, which is a little bit ways back from where Zeromus is.
Absolutely.
And then we have Mom Bomb exploding for Rivers. After exploding, the 6 resulting bombs do not have the boss bed and can be hourglassed or otherwise cheesed, but Rivers is strong enough that he probably shouldn't even need to bother.
Yeah, seeing the extraordinary amount of damage which they did on that explode, you can see he's very, very worried.
Yeah, he was trying to take them out with his Zeus Rage, although unfortunately he used it a little bit too soon so that the game hadn't updated the number of targets yet and it only hit 1 of them instead of all 6.
But again, with his party, this won't eat up too much time on his clock.
Okay, and Neerrm just about ready to see who the boss is sitting here in Cave Bahamut. Oh, and that is the Mist Dragon, who is hiding a key item itself. Plus, there could potentially be a key item at this spot as well. So that is a 2 key item opportunity here. So definitely what he wants to see.
Yes, but this dragon is not going down without a fight, though, being in Bahamut's location, which is a pretty high damage spot. Yeah, he's going to have to tank some pretty heavy hits.
And you would think it wouldn't be that hard, as D-Mist is actually the very first boss in Final Fantasy IV. But again, you put certain bosses in certain spots and you just get really tough battles.
Yeah, because some of these bosses have stats that they don't actually use at all in the normal game. Like Bahamut in the normal game does nothing but count down and then use Mega Flare, which is a magic attack. But it turns out it does actually have a fairly high strength stat too, which is resulting in these pretty heavy punches.
Seems to be a recurring theme with a lot of Rydia's summons. Surel, Leviathan, Bahamut, all kind of middling magic power, but they're physicals. Ooh.
Fortunately, he does get healing breaks if he needs them, because after every 3 attacks, the dragon turns to mist.
Yeah, kind of a double-edged sword there. You do get the time to heal up, but you also have to wait, when all Neerrm wants to do is go fast here. Work with this dragon.
Okay, just has to wait for that room to finish exploding, and he'll have to finish leaving the tower before seeing what potential key item he's going to be graced with. So we probably have time for at least one donation here.
All right, here is $25 from Mike Kurtz, who says, finally able to watch Rivers run FF4 at a GDQ event. I don't know how we went nearly a decade working together without knowing that you're running my favorite game and doing it well. I'm forcing the FO Discord to watch and chart so we can calculate everyone's Cecil usage less expected. Go Rivers!
Rivers actually did run Final Fantasy IV, the vanilla speedrun at AGDQ 2018.
Almost exactly a year ago.
So if anyone does want to see him run the vanilla version of this game, please go check out that VOD. It was an excellent run.
And then the prize from Cave Bahamut, the direct prize, unfortunately, being a glass helmet, which is generally considered to be the weakest key item location prize.
It can be handy in certain circumstances, usually in the early game when you still have a lot of physical bosses in your way, especially if you have low HP characters. This team, full of high HP physical bruisers, doesn't really need it, and it has no magic defense and no magic evade. And the only attacks the final boss uses are magical. Obda giving us a peek, seeing Palom, the Black Mage of Mysidia, behind the package. Not going to go through those cutscenes for that character this time.
And luckily, we know that the demist is not sitting there, so not missing out on that. Oh, River's going to make the play for the sealed cave. This is a really, really aggravating dungeon in the vanilla version of the game. All of the doors are actually trapdoors, so you have to fight them all. However, with the encounters turned off, unless you turn those encounters back on, you do not have to fight the doors. So making this a much faster walk.
Yeah, another side effect of that too, we've already seen too in Cave Bahamut, because normally there's a couple of trap tiles along the way to the boss there that have fights with behemoths on them that you can't run away from, but those are also deactivated.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the only item that was given to us by the demist was the Sand Ruby, and as we saw, there was not a good character there, just a duplicate in the bed, so a bit of a loss there, but it looks like Neerrm is not discouraged and is probably going to head right back up to the moon.
So yeah, and Neerrm being our only character without 10 key items, though, that Sand Ruby does count as a key item, though, getting him closer to that double experience bonus.
Absolutely.
I believe this is probably one of the first Final Fantasy IV runs at a marathon where we actually get to see the sealed cave.
Yeah.
Of course, in the vanilla runs, they tend to use the warp glitch in Dwarf Castle and just go straight to...
Ooh.
And there it is.
There it is, the crystal, the ever-prized key item. But he does need to kill a boss in order to keep it, and he is the only runner who has not found a way to the moon. So will he find that darkness crystal or the pass before one of the other runners finds the crystal? That could really make or break the seed.
Rivers does kind of have an advantage here. We thought that it was kind of unfortunate that he did not find the Darkness Crystal, but the Darkness Crystal has given so many rabbit hole possibilities to our other racers that it's very likely they chase those, all those lunar bosses, and all the time, the crystal waiting here in Sealed Cave.
And we have found our second white mage. We have Porum on the moon. Obda has decided to keep Porum and dismissed, I believe, Sid. But Neerrm just let Porum go. Just not worth grinding at this point.
And is making that dive. One of the interesting things to see, and we're going to see this here between Obda and Neerrm, is how each racer chooses to route the moon, the lunar core. Neerrm did go ahead and take care of Cave Bahamut. Obda forwent that decision. We do have 5 boss spots in here, 1 near the top, 3 near the bottom, and 1 kind of in the middle. So let's see how they each choose to target them.
And even though we do know at this point that the crystal is not on the moon, defeating these bosses will give a lot of experience too, and kind of help make progress towards reaching the levels needed to fight Zeromus without having to do a lot of additional grinding once they do have the crystal.
Yeah, being the final boss, Zeromus is the only boss who is not scaled in any way and is quite difficult. And many of our racers, especially these being so good, tend to try and make a run at that final boss at lower levels than many other folks would attempt. So you definitely want to get every little bit of extra experience that you can without taking too much extra time.
Indeed, and Rivers is wrapping up this Pel Dim fight without too much difficulty. It's The roughest things it does are counterattacks, notably if you use summon magic on it or certain elemental spells. But this team of melee fighters, they just have to deal with the annoyance of having slow cast on them repeatedly.
And the most annoying thing is the slow animation itself, too. Just because it does it after every physical attack, so it's wasting a couple seconds every time.
So both Neerrm and Obdajr chose to run the same way. However, Obdajr is currently choosing to do his King Ryu grind before attempting any of the bosses, while Neerrm ran straight for the ribbon spot because when you defeat that one boss, you get the 2 potential key items. So definitely a good place to start.
I think I saw maybe a little bit of a wry grin on Neerm's face there. He is the one racer of ours to have ditched Paladin Cecil, which there is a script at the karate fight. After the second kick, you just have to swing once with Paladin Cecil. Yang says, ouch, and the fight is over, but he's having to do it the long way here and churn through all of these HP.
One of the few negatives of dismissing Cecil.
Also, Rivers unfortunately having to just walk all the way out of the sealed cave because of not having a black mage with the warp spell, which lets you skip at least some of these longer rooms.
And of course, exit spell disabled in the sealed cave. Don't want to allow you to grab that key item and then skip the evil wall in the vanilla game.
Or skip Kane stealing the crystal and leaving the normal game too, yeah.
Which would definitely soft lock in the vanilla.
We've tried.
We have certainly tried.
Another interesting little tidbit about the sealed cave as we're leaving it too is that the trap, even though they can avoid the trapdoors using it just by turning off encounters, the trapdoors are worth a lot of experience, and in some seeds that's actually a nice place to level up if you don't have sirens especially.
Rivers, following process of elimination, I believe he has cleared everything possible on the blue planet, except for if he really wanted to, he could check that package and hope Mist Dragon was behind it. But he's pretty much narrowed it down to the Tower of Zod. He knows that there has to be a Darkness Crystal here. We know that there's not a hidden Mist Dragon somewhere blocking it, so he's going to the right place at this point.
And unfortunately, no new key item for Neerrm behind the Rivers, though he did get an Excalibur, which he also can't use with his non-existent Cecil.
Well, he could get Cecil back with the package if he really, really wanted to.
I'm not sure he really, really wants to.
I don't think so either.
So we do have a few loose key items still possible to find on the moon that could send Neerrm for a loop. The main one, of course, being Baron Key. I believe we've seen pretty much everything else that opens up a chain. So if he finds that soon, it could still lead him further and further from the actual crystal.
Neerrm also using some AU apples, which are gold apples. That's another Japanese item that permanently raises a character's max HP by 100.
Although with this team.
Yeah, they're generally more useful for mages to make them a little less squishy.
But if you have them, might as well use them. And that evil wall, which we were missing from the sealed cave, apparently took up new residence on the moon.
Khobahi making the play as well in a sealed cave. He'll be very happy to see what he finds down here.
And especially where he already has the Darkness Crystal.
And a source of warp on Fu.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of a race to go mode now, I would say, between Khobahi and Rivers. Go mode meaning what we call when a player has found all of the key items that they need in order to beat the game.
AKA the crystal and some way to get to the moon. Okay, probably time for a couple of donations here.
All right, I've got a few short ones here, recognizing some of you over there providing commentary. We've got $25 from Jim Starkiller, who says, shout out to my favorite Twitch streamer, Puwexil. Great to see you once again. Also have $100 from Matt and Emma, who say, hyped to see our good friend and neighbor Boardface at GDQ. Good luck to all the runners. And $50 here from Dex, who says, thanks to Boardface for developing this amazing mod, which breathed new life into one of my favorite childhood games.
Khobahi about to be very pleased with what he sees here. Going to be getting his crystal and ready to go. Still does have to fight the Pale Dim and escape Sealed Cave before he can make his way. So it's going to be kind of between him and Rivers at this point. And Neerrm does find that Baron Key, our last chain item, an item that would in turn open up more potential key item locations. So A lot of options, and it's going to be on Neerrm to choose the correct one going forward here.
Yeah, the Baron key letting you enter the Baron sewers and castle, and then there's one key item waiting for you in the Kainazo location, and then in this mode, another one in the Odin location in the basement.
Neerrm making the dive now down to the Ogopogo spot. This is a very high-statted boss spot. Neerrm does have the levels to deal with most things here, but there's still a few monsters we would not really like to see. That could be one of them.
Yeah, this can be kind of an awkward fight to deal with, especially if you're using a party that's heavily reliant on just pure melee attacks. Just because if you directly attack these lunar dragons with the fight command, then they start a what we call the virus script, where they cast wall on themselves and then start bouncing virus spells off of each other to do a lot of damage to you.
On the plus side, we do get a chance to see Arby's cast Meteo.
It is noteworthy that although that fire attack appears to be doing a lot of damage, it is only percentile-based damage, so you don't have to worry about a single hit of it really just destroying Neerrm's party here. It's pretty easy to keep topped off, and the melee attacks with how well equipped his team is at this point shouldn't be too threatening either.
So it looks like Rivers, now being the first character fully in go mode and finished with the bosses, is going to summon his lunar whale. We'll see whether he'll do some leveling up on the moon, or whether he thinks he is ready to go now and is going to run straight for the final boss, Zeromus.
And here we do see Khobahi taking advantage of that warp spell with Fusoya. Not going to have to walk through all these long cave complexes, going to save him a few seconds over what Rivers had to do.
And we have Neerrm apparently deciding he's softened up the dragons enough to just use a Bacchus wine to cast Berserk on Kain and then just try to finish them off before they can do anything too damaging.
Yeah, I believe Kain has been equipped with a Dragoon Spear for quite a while. Does 4 times damage to all dragon types, including undead ones.
Unfortunately, just getting a defense sword.
Yet another sword for the Paladin he discarded. I believe Kain can use it too, although it is definitely weaker than the spear he has used now.
Absolutely. Okay, Obdajr is going to try the exact same fight, but with a Fusoya in his party, going to make that much easier.
Khobahi taking a quick look at his levels. I believe he's contemplating both how he wants his party to be arranged, as well as how much grinding he thinks he still needs to do based on the current team composition and the gear that they are equipped with.
So this will be Rivers' last chance to take a new character. Likely at this point, he is not going to take Porm into his party, but we will see. He might decide he needs that extra heal. Yeah. He's so happy to see Arby's. Sorry, Arby's.
We have Neerrm heading for the Wyvern boss location, yet another potential key item.
Khobahi doing a little bit of shopping here. Does grab Sirens both to facilitate his grind when he gets to the moon, and Silk Webs, a Japanese item that casts slow twice over on a foe and is really fantastic if you intend to use Berserk strats on the Zeromus fight. Which, Puwexil, do you want to talk a little bit about the main strategies we use as we approach that battle?
Sure. Well, generally there's, I would say, about 3 main strategies that Free Enterprise players use against Zeromus, the final boss. Which direction you go kind of purely depends on which characters you have, along with your levels and equipment. The first one is basically a kind of a pure melee-based strategy where we have 2, preferably 3 fighter-type characters like Paladin Cecil, Kain, Yang, or Sid, with good strength and good weapons, and then berserk them so that they constantly attack with the damage bonus, along with just increased attack speed too, and then just kind of let it go from there, and then use preferably white mages, but also Cure 3 items or elixirs to recover from Zeromus's Big Bang attacks. On the other hand, we can do a magic-based strategy where we use high damage spells like Nuke and White in particular, the strongest black and white single target spells, and generally reflect those off of a wall to avoid counterattacks, and also to kind of take advantage of a glitch where they can actually only have to do about half of the total amount of health that Zeromus has in order to win the fight. And then in some cases, we might actually see kind of a hybrid strat where we do kind of a mix of Berserk fighters and reflected spell damage too. I'd say with this party composition, we are definitely looking at a Berserk-based Zeromus fight with Kane, Yang, and Cecil attacking, and then Fusoya casting Cure 3 to recover. Oh, I'm sorry, Cure 4.
So Rivers is starting to make his final descent towards Zeromus, pausing on the way to use some of those sirens to grind up. With that many key items and the party this strong, you can get a lot of levels real fast.
Though he does have a lot of levels already, so he is not going to have to fight very many of these King Ryus at all, and soon he'll be ready to fight that final boss.
Yeah, as nice as it was for Neerrm to be getting 90,000 per fight earlier, with these 10 key items, Rivers is getting 180,000 experience per fight. You do have to temper yourself here, because you see all these levels, you may get a little greedy, think just one more, but Khobahi's right on his heels, and we'll see which one takes the fight to Zeromus at the bare minimum here.
Absolutely. You never know who's quite on your heels when you're doing these randomizers.
And just to recap the path that our racers did take to get here, we did get a very early hook from the Baron Inn location, which gave us our underground access. In turn, fighting the Dwarf Castle fights gave us the Earth Crystal from King Giat, which then, if you went to the Tower of Zot, would give you a Darkness Crystal. That's our lunar access. The other half of the equation, of course, is the Luca Key, which was a little more annoying. You had to talk to Yang in the Sylph Cave, talk to Sheila to get the pan, go back to Sylph Cave and actually get the Luca Key from the Sylphs, and then finally diving into the Sealed Cave gave our racers the crystal. So kind of awkward two branching paths that both had to be chased today, but Rivers making excellent time on this seed, and Khobahi right behind him.
Yeah, and just to go back to talking about setting up for the Zeromus fight too, with Fusoya as all of our players is white mage. Fusoya has kind of low max MP compared to like Rosa or Porum at high enough levels to be able to learn Cure 4. So they do want to make sure to go in there if they can with some kind of item to recover Fusoya's MP if the fight lasts long enough for him to need it, like Ether 2 or Elixir, or if they find a Soma drop too, that can help too, which is another Japanese item that permanently raises a character's max MP by 10, which gives Fusoya enough to get in an extra Cure 4.
And just to note, Neerrm has been our first racer to find the pass. So while he has not yet found the crystal, when he does, he will have an instant access straight to the final boss. He will not have to do any walking like the rest of our racers have been doing thus far. So that is definitely going to help save him some time.
And it is notable that he has already done the bulk of his grinding, so while Rivers and Khobahi are both taking time out to fight these gold dragons, and I believe Rivers is done, now just getting his inventory and equipment in order, that does shave off the walk through the moon for Neerrm.
This is definitely, the race is not over yet. Zeromus is a difficult fight, so less so for these racers, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see how it goes.
Ooh, and with Rivers equipping the Dwarf Axe too, I think this would be an excellent opportunity to talk about agility manipulation. Boardface, do you want to talk about that?
Well, agility manipulation is very complicated. I might think I would like to talk about Z first, because we're really close to that, and that's a donation incentive. So one of the most popular features of this randomizer is something we call the Z flag. And all that does is that it replaces Zeromus' final form battle sprite with just some other graphic, like, I don't know, Waluigi or something. It's a random thing that happens at the end of every seed that just gives you a little bit of a surprise and something to look forward to. Now, in this case, it's not a surprise. We know what it is because it was a donation incentive, and in true GDQ fashion, you have all opted to kill the animals. So...
Or try to, at least.
Yeah.
Try to.
Or will the animals make their comeback?
Yeah, because again, even though every other boss in the game has had their stats changed based on where they are, because Zeromus is the final boss, his stats are always the same, basically, and randomizing his sprite gives us just a little bit of fun, basically, with a fight that we otherwise know what to expect from.
Absolutely. The battle script stays exactly the same no matter what this sprite is. And just to note that all of the sprites that you were donating on are actually debut sprites. They have never been seen before. So this is let's all look at this beautiful new sprite, specially prepared for us by SchalaKitty. I'm sure it is going to be fantastic.
And she would say, whose butt are we going to kick tonight?
I believe Dakota and Eticones.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, hello.
I will note SchalaKitty was very excited about this one being debuted, and I can see why.
Yeah. And then I guess just to kind of go back and talk about agility manipulation too, Zeromus's agility stat is calculated at the start of the fight based on either Cecil's agility or whoever is in your middle party slot if you don't have Cecil under these settings. And it's a pretty kind of deep and technical thing, but I'll just kind of sum it up by saying that having that what we call agility anchor with an agility score that's a multiple of 14, like 14 or 28, makes Zeromus as slow as possible. And that's only calculated right at the start of the fight. So River's equipped a Dwarf Axe, which is -5 agility in order to lower Cecil's agility, but then he's free to switch back to the Excalibur, which is a much stronger weapon for actually doing the fight.
And you might worry about that new counterattack that we did just get from Zeromus. However, that is as a counterattack on a move. When used in the first turn as it was, it actually nukes the amount of damage that Zeromus is going to do on the first Big Bang, as you're going to see here. Usually a very devastating attack, but with that initial attack underway, you're going to find it does not quite so much damage. Very, very helpful.
Yeah, there was a kind of little oversight in the code. They wanted to make sure that those counter nukes did quite a bit of damage to you in the vanilla game, but wouldn't actually wipe a character. So it lowers the magic attack to where, okay, we'll just do a few thousand damage, but it never sets it back up again for the Big Bang until it comes up again in the script. So you'll see our racers possibly trying to take advantage of that narrow window throughout the fight to keep from taking that full Big Bang damage.
Yeah, only in the first turn can you do that at any point in that turn. After that first Big Bang, you have to time that fairly precisely.
Yeah, basically in between when Zeromus shakes and when he actually does Big Bang is the window.
And Khobahi has also transformed his Zeromus into the animals, and we have a race on, neck and neck between these two.
Absolutely, and it does look like even though they have fairly similar parties, there are some differences, and they are using a similar strat. It looks like they are using the hybrid strats of the Bacchus wines on their physical attackers and getting some magic in there, hopefully, with their Fusayas. But they could just relegate their Fusaya to healing, making it a full physical attack. So we shall see.
Meanwhile, down the rabbit hole, Obda has gone to Baron Castle, found Rosa. It's a little too late, unfortunately, for Rosa.
Yeah, she is the best white mage in the game, but yeah, at this point, not going to be enough.
We don't need any twins to make a Gallant sacrifice to stop the wall too. In Free Enterprise, we can just leave.
And Neerrm thought the Fey March bosses received his rewards there, including the tower key, and is now chasing it down the rabbit hole.
But now we have a Medio on Rivers' side, which means that Zeromus has under, I believe, 12,000 HP left. So as soon as the screen flashes the first time, that is going to be time.
Yeah, we'll let you know exactly when that happens.
There it is.
There we go. Time.
Woo!
Rivers having a location he didn't even visit.
To note, this set of flags is the flags that we used in our recent league that we had for this randomizer. And Rivers did represent Team Bahamut, so showing a bit of Team Bahamut pride. So now let's see if Khobahi can clean this up and take that second place.
Yeah, little tidbit too. Even though Meteor is meant to be the strongest attack spell in the game, when Zeromus uses it, it's a much weaker version. So it's not, I mean, unless you've already been beaten up really badly by Big Bang, you really don't have much to worry about.
Yeah, it's the only time in the game where you're absolutely delighted to see Meteor. And one thing you're going to see in the credits as they play through from Rivers is it gives us a showdown, and it shows where all the different key items were located. So if you happen to miss some, didn't know quite where things were, the randomizer will happily show you where everything was located.
As we mentioned, just given how much love there is for the Twin Harp Easter egg, it can be a wonderful thing. After the seed, you really want to hear that music, just sit around for a second. It'll tell you where to go, and you can enjoy those sweet, sweet tunes.
Obda choosing to fight the Odin spot and receiving a key item of the spoon. It is a throwable item if you have edge doing max damage, but other than that has no purpose, so not at all what he was looking for.
There is an option you can set in the most recent version of the randomizer that does give the spoon another purpose, and let's just say that it allows Edward to fill his spoony destiny.
And we are coming up on time for Khobahi.
We are.
And time.
Thankfully, with the amount of levels that both Neerrm and Obdajr Jr. have at this point, even though they do have locations to be checking, it is not going to take either of them long to locate that crystal and also make their way to the moon. And the difference between them and Rivers and Khobahi is both Obda and Neerrm have the pass. So as soon as they have that crystal, they can go immediately to Zeromus and do their own fight with the animals.
And Obda zeroing in on the sealed cave, going to be getting his very soon. However, while Obda and Neerrm go through these paths, I think we could fit in a couple more donations.
Absolutely.
Here's a $50 donation from Snipes5546, who says, "This goes to Obda's choice, since he is the person I found GDQ through and the person I created my Twitch account for. Good luck." Also have a $30 donation from Rename, who says, "Shout out to one of the best communities in speedrunning. Free Enterprise is an amazingly fun game to run, and I'm glad I got into it. So many great people involved, and the game just keeps getting better. Also, shout outs to Glacier. Love ya, buddy."
So with all this love coming in for the community board, you want to give us one more refresher on how to join it and be a part of it?
Absolutely. Just go to our website. It is ff4fe.com. And there's just a big old link right on the front page to our Discord. And you jump right in. We've got channels for people who just want to race. We've got channels dedicated for new players to give them advice. Everyone is very helpful. People love discussing their own strategies. It is a wonderful place to be, honestly.
And I believe there's some upcoming mini tournaments relatively soon, too.
Absolutely. Starting in mid-February, we have the World Series of Free Enterprise, kind of themed after the World Series of Poker. It is a series of 7 different events based on 7 different commonly run flag sets of the game. You don't have to play all of them. Come play ones that you think are beginner-friendly, ones you enjoy, and see if you can make a final table and show your stuff in the randomizer.
Rivers showing off the package, which I didn't see exactly which randomized sprite it was, but when you use the package now, rather than just having the bomb sprite, it is a randomized sprite. So we also see Palom was the character.
It's a little hard to see on our monitor, but I believe it was Rubicante, which, if you're going to have someone burn down a village, I think he's the guy to do it.
Very appropriate.
I have seen some pretty wacky stuff come out of that package, though, in the short time it's been part of Free Enterprise.
Kane with his flowing blonde hair was my personal favorite.
Captive Rosa was probably the most memorable one I've seen.
So Neerrm is choosing to go back to Fabul to take on that Valvalis.
And we do know this will be, well, the Valvalis fight itself won't be required, but he is in the right spot. He did check on Young in the Sylph Cave. After he does this fight and talks to Sheila, he'll get the pan, then he just has to go back, bonk Young, get the Luca key, and he'll be able to get his crystal as well.
Absolutely. And Obdajr has received his crystal and has defeated the boss, so now is working on escaping the sealed cave, so he can now also join in fighting Zeromus.
Yeah, and he's able to get out considerably faster than Rivers because of having Fusoya and being able to cast the warp spell to bypass entire floors of the cave going out.
And although some of them are fairly quick to run through, there are a few that just take so long. This is an excellent time save.
Yeah, we can probably fit in a few more donations here until we get to Zeromus.
All right, here is Park Bench donating $100 to the Prevent Cancer Foundation, and they say, I participated in a Mysidia Mayhem tournament a few years ago and got to know these lovely people. I don't have much time in my life for running or even lurking anymore, but these folks will always be my first speed community, and they welcomed me with open arms. So proud to see how far the community has come, and so psyched for this new hack. Even if FF6 is actually better. Good luck, everyone, and don't fall flat into the deep ravine. Nash donated $50 and said, Final Fantasy IV is my favorite speed game to watch, and this randomizer looks really interesting. Loved the rendition of Tall Tall Heights.
Obdajr is showcasing that pass as the alternate route to Zeromus. We have a little Serpent Road duplicate here, except that instead of teleporting us between towns on Earth, we're going to get a little cutscene and go straight to the Zeromus Rim.
Yeah, so a side effect of the pass, though, is that once you've used it and gone through the warp, you can't leave, though. So you do want to make sure that you've saved recently and that you're ready for the fight before, and that you have the crystal, especially, too, before you step through.
Yeah, it is not a path to the moon. It is only a path to the final boss. If you try and step on that teleporter, it will not work.
Another quality of life improvement as a runner of the normal game that I'm a fan of here too is the 6-minute cutscene that normally happens between getting to the bottom of the moon and actually starting the Zeromus fight being taken out.
Didn't I hear rumors there were going to be some potential additions for this special ROM?
I did briefly consider adding the ghosts at the start of this fight back in just for GDQ, but then I realized that would be extremely punishing if anybody wiped the Zeromus and they'd have to watch that whole thing again.
Oh, one of these four wiped as Zeromus? I don't think that's going to happen.
Why would you say that? Okay, animals, third time's the charm, right?
I am curious to see if Obda's going to opt to throw his spoon at the animals or just go straight to the Bacchus.
Okay, choosing to start with that silk web, not only to hopefully slow down, but to also a nuke.
One of the things to watch out for, though, is that if you try to throw it a little too soon, the game still has you target the previous Zeromus sprite, which can't actually be hit. So you definitely want to give it just that extra tick to make sure you hit the right target and slow down the correct Zeromus bow.
Yeah, that timing is quite difficult.
Before breaking out the cutlery, as they were throwing the Excalibur, I guess the second Excalibur that he found.
Not just one, but two.
You get a holy sword. You get a holy sword.
Can you imagine Smithy just forging an Excalibur with all this newfound energy in his life, and he's really proud of it, and then you just bring him another one and say, here, I found another one.
We did mention how there is a mode where you do have to forge the crystal using adamant and the legend sword. It's always nice when he's like, if only I had adamant, and you go start checking all his shelves and his pots, and here's an adamant armor, and here's an adamant armor. It's like, dude, really?
Yeah. I do want to note, if you take a look at Neerrm's tracker, how quickly he has filled it up, because he's able to just pop from spot to spot. The bosses are really just completely a joke. So finally heading to the sealed cave, so he will be joining Obdajr at the moon very shortly.
And I believe, based on the sprite I'm seeing, Obda has another wonderful tool for making this fight happen. It looks like he has the Avenger Sword equipped on Kain, which we've mentioned our love for Berserk strats, but one of the annoyances is that Zeromus will periodically throw out a black hole, which forces you to re-up your Berserk status. If you have that Avenger Sword equipped, you don't have to worry about that. That character will just keep on swinging, keep piling on the damage.
And with the use of that Star Veil, it looks like we are going to get some reflex strats going, which definitely helps speed this fight up a lot.
Yeah, because the benefit to reflecting like the white or nuke spells in particular off of a wall during this fight is that reflected damage sources in Final Fantasy IV will not trigger counterattacks or counter scripts, and that bypasses what Zeromus normally does after magic attacks, which is to cast the nuke spell.
Or even ruder, since he is using white magic with Porum, or Cannon in this case, it's even worse than a counter nuke. He will throw a counter weak out, which if you still have the sap effect from a recent Big Bang, oh, that character is falling very quickly.
They are basically immediately dead. And those reflex strats are actually very useful in a lot of different boss fights, so definitely a good set of strategies to remember, especially for any sort of boss which has any sort of reflexive action.
And there's our Meteor, which again means Zeromus is down to under 12,000 hit points.
And Neerrm at the same time getting his crystal, so...
The look of agony and ecstasy on his face, all at once.
I feel sorry.
Time.
Time.
I feel sorry for this pale dim. It's going to take quite a beating with all that pent-up frustration.
Yeah, and to note, none of these delays have anything to do with skill. Sometimes it's just which path you're going to take the guess, like the risk. Do I want to do Moon? Do I want to do Underground? And sometimes that path you take just does not have the payoff. Yeah, all four of these racers are some of the top of our community, so they are all
because Neerrm has found all but one of the key items in the entire seed. All he's missing is the spoon, and the fact that he's gone pretty much everywhere and is still going to probably pretty comfortably cut 2 hours on this is definitely a testament to his skill.
Not many who can do that.
And he has cleared his final regular boss of the game. Only Zeromus stands in his way. Going to be just leaving this cave and using that pass, and he'll be done very soon as well.
I do not want to be the animals right now.
They knew what they were getting into.
They
Animals
did
at a GDQ event, they knew what was coming.
They've had a good life. We probably have time for a couple of donations while we make our way to Zeromus.
All right, I'll try to warp through a couple here. Ovuk Jam with a $15 donation saying, psyched to see my favorite randomizer get to show off how fun it can be. Shoutouts to the awesome commentators keeping us in the loop on this amazing run. Also have Bursic with a $100 donation. They said, I've been playing randomizers since seeing A Link to the Past last AGDQ and have had a blast with Free Enterprise and its fantastic community for the past few months. Here's to kicking cancer and Zeromus's butt. One more here, $50 from No Dana, Only Zool, who says, first time watching GDQ this year and loving the FF4 run. Blast from my past. Thanks to all the runners and staff that make this great event happen. Let's kick cancer in the bits. Had Conkers donating $220 as promised. $10 for each minute the winner finished less than 2 hours. Congrats on the win, suck dude. Thanks to all the runners, commentators, and trackers.
We do have Neerrm doing his final equip session just to try to get every ounce of damage and defense he can for his melee heavy team. I don't think we're going to be seeing any hybrid strats from him tonight.
No, I do not think so.
Yeah, not with only one mage who's going to need to devote most of his turns to casting Cure 4.
Probably won't be that many, though. With these levels, this gear, this DPS, Zeromus is going to be hard for us to get many actions off at all this fight.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you don't work that agility just right, you see how vastly different this fight is with Big Bang just coming after Big Bang after Big Bang. And you're just like, oh my God, do I get a turn? Before you die.
And that's often an interesting challenge if you get the crystal and Zeromus access very early in a playthrough too, because then you haven't kind of naturally leveled up enough from fighting bosses and trap chests to just get strong enough to win the fight from that, and then it kind of becomes a puzzle at that point of just how much like grinding do you need to do in order to stand a chance.
Briefly here, I have $30 from Zeromus themselves. It says, now for my final form, Animalmus. Wait, what?
Well, he is the ultimate embodiment of hatred. I guess they were just so sick of being left behind.
Absolutely. And speaking of Zeromus and his sprites, approximately how many different Zeromus sprites do we have right now?
I believe we're getting towards 400.
So yes, definitely many, many different options to see there from many of your favorite games. And for one last time, let us welcome the animals to the stage. That gets better every time I see it.
Cute, but in a terrifying way.
Yeah. I'm going to be sleeping very well tonight. I don't know about you folks.
So again, seeing a lot of similar strats. Unfortunately, that Silk Web going a little early again. Again, that timing is incredibly difficult. Getting Berserk strats in there as well.
And of course, hesitating here with Fu, ready to heal up whoever gets this nuke, wanting to keep the entire team topped off and healthy so they can keep dishing out that damage.
Thankfully, hitting Sid, who has some of the highest HP in the party, definitely able to take that nuke and also survive a lower damage Big Bang. It's always nice to have Edge in your party as an opportunity to just throw some of those items, especially when you get the high-powered ones like the Spoon, the Excalibur. That was a defense sword doing a nice almost 6,000 damage.
Yeah, especially having opted to lose Paladin Cecil. He's got an array of various swords you can all just throw at Zeromus now.
Absolutely.
Showcasing again how weak those nerfed Big Bangs can be. Those of you who played the vanilla game, of course, and did not know that particular bit of tech, used to seeing roughly 2,000 damage, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, and now just paltry hundreds. Easy to survive. Neerrm has this in the bag.
Yeah, but each Big Bang does need to kind of be independently nerfed, though. The
Yeah.
first one's pretty easy to time, the other one's less so.
And again, talking about Fu's lower MP value, making sure not to waste those Cure 4s, which are much higher in MP cost, using instead only a Cure 3, definitely conserving to try and make it through this battle unscathed. I always love the lightning sound effect from that particular spear that Kane has.
Yeah, the Dragoon Spear in this version.
We do see a shake. Neerrm is hesitating here, opting not to nerf this one, going to just heal through it. Has this team of bruisers, tons of HP, thinks he can just tank it. We'll see how rough it treats him.
Absolutely. Thankfully, a lower roll.
Having thrown everything that he can, opting to Berserk Shiny now. Here's our meteor phase.
Not long to go yet.
So coming up on
Not at
time for
all.
Neerrm.
I was going to comment that he was going to need some healing soon, but in the meteor phase, nope, that's
Nope,
it.
time.
Time.
Everyone underestimate. GG to all our racers.
GG. And with that, we have all 4 racers have completed this seed, so congratulations to them. Just doing a last few shout outs. First to our runners for doing just all the preparation they did and giving us such a fabulous show, so thank you to all of them. Our 2 trackers working very hard to make sure we knew exactly which items everyone had. SchalaKitty and Demarine working very hard. SchalaKitty also being the one who designed the wonderful animal sprite that we saw today, doing a lot of good work for this community. And a last call on the couch, we have Boardface, our developer, we have Invenerable, we have Puwexil, and I'm Netara, and we are passing it back over to you. Thank you, and join us at ff4fe.com.
Thank you so much to our Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise racers, Neerrm, riversmccown, Khobahi, and Obdajr, and to the wonderful commentators and those trackers there, making sure you knew which items they had picked up. We have some donations from them, actually, so I figured I'd get around to those. Demarine donated $80, saying, "Thank you for all your kind words about the FF4 Free Enterprise community. We love you all." And SchalaKitty donated $40, saying, "As promised in the Free Enterprise Community Discord, this is $5 per vanilla boss / item spot. Thank you, AGDQ, for the wonderful reception and letting us show off our passion project." I have a $33.33 donation from Anon Mouse here. They're looking ahead already. They say, "I will watch TazBlock. I 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 will watch TazBlock." Thank you, Anon Mouse. And the TazBot block of games is indeed coming up next. Let's get through some more Final Fantasy IV Free Enterprise related donation comments, though, while I still have a chance to read them. RPG Chick donating $50 because Rivers won. Thank you so much. We also have $50 here from Margaret Ann. This just in from the Lunarian News Network. The Hummingways have completed their pillow fort and are now decorating it with spoons? Updates to come as this story unfolds. In the meantime, thanks to the FE community for being so welcoming and wonderful. Peter Nelson donated $30, saying, "So many excellent races this year. Keep up the hard work, everyone." Thank you, Peter. We certainly will. And we'll be right back after this message from Twitch. Welcome back to AGDQ 2019. I'm Prolix. You know, my time on the mic here is almost done with you all, but I'll get through a few more donations. And yeah, what am I planning to do after that? I don't know. I might go over to Arby's, order the medio, and see what happens. Let's see. Okay, I should probably announce this. I know some of you have seen it. I've seen the talk in chat already. We do have an incentive open for a bonus game tomorrow set of Block 6. If you would like to see an extra run of Bloodborne, then you can get your donations in toward that now. That's right, we'll be doing a Bloodborne Any Percent by Jesus Here's Toast tomorrow evening, right after Dark Souls 3. So if you're a From Software fan, a fan of those Soulsborne games, check that out. We'd love to have you donate toward our cause here and get that bonus run in while we're at it. Mr. Popo donated $30 there during our last run, said FF4 randomizer race? What madness is this? Oh, it was the best kind of madness. That's what $125 donated here from Red Wit Rage, who said, Final Fantasy is by far my favorite game series. Had to donate during the FF4 randomizer. And we're glad you did. Thank you so much. Top Ramens gave $100 to the Prevent Cancer Foundation and said, glad to see FF4 being here at AGDQ less than 3. Mr. Goat donated $30 and said, yay, RPGs and stuff. Yes, that's right. And stuff. We're very good at stuff here. $50 from Little Baby Gator, and they said, I love you, GDQ. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, and that'll do it for me, folks. You know, since it's TazBot block coming up, we'll have a new host for you. It's Railcoon, the wonderful and talented. He'll take care of you from now on. I'm going to send it over to the interview desk, and you'll have a new host when we get back here. So take it away. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Awesome Games Done Quick 2019. My name is Sent, and I'm joined here by Puwexil, who was one of the commentators in that amazing FF4 Free Enterprise race we just saw. Guys, can we get another round of applause for Free Enterprise? That was amazing, right?
Yeah, really good race. Really good showing.
That was
a lot
an incredible
of hard work.
race. Yeah, for sure. And a huge shout out, Puwexil, to you and all of the commentators and all the people behind the scenes manning the tracker and making sure that that race went as smoothly as it did. So, you know, I just had a couple of questions for you, and then I want to jump into some great prizes that we've got from now until the end of Super Mario Sunshine a little bit later tonight. So, you know, right at the start of that race, we saw basically the people split into two groups and start doing two different kind of lines of checks. You know, from the start of the game, I know Free Enterprise is fairly open, as, you know, most randomizers are and need to be. But, I mean, how many ways can you go from the start? Are there, like, different metas that people try and adhere to, or is it pretty much just, hey, I'm going to go off in a direction, I'm going to try and get a couple of checks, and we'll see where that leads?
Well, I mean, there's usually some kind of standard locations that players often go to, depending on just where there's a lot of chests that you can just pick up without having to like fight anything or already have another item that gates access to it. But kind of one of the beauties of it too is that because you do start the playthrough with a random key item, and in some cases one that opens up another area, depending on what that is, that might kind of change your routing right out of the gate. Like one in particular I would say is the Earth Crystal, because the Earth Crystal, in addition to, as we saw during the race, letting you go into the Tower of Zot, also lets you raid a very large treasury in Troya Castle, which if you get that very early, can be kind of a lucrative pull to go to the northwest corner of the map first.
For sure. Now, you mentioned, you know, trying to find things that are locked behind other items. In other randomizers, and actually in the randomizer panel earlier today, by the way, guys, you should definitely watch the randomizer panel as soon as it's up on YouTube, hopefully a little bit later. You know, there was a talk of spheres, the idea of spheres, you know, items locked directly behind other items. So like a sphere 0 check would be the items you could get at the very start of the game. A sphere 1 check is an item that is locked directly behind a sphere 0 check. Is Free Enterprise a game that goes very deep with spheres, or is it generally more of a wider game and more about assembling a party that can actually beat Zeromus?
I would probably say there is a bit of spheres too. I mean, a factor too, I guess, is just kind of how easy or difficult you as the player want to make it too. Because we saw in the race tonight, we saw one of the logic options was a mode that we called no free lunch, which turns off a lot of kind of freebie characters or key items that you could get just without having to already have something else. Like if the no free lunch flag is turned off, which makes it a bit more beginner friendly, they could have gone like straight to Mysidia to get 2 free characters, along with the Watery Pass, and then get a free key item in Troya Castle by talking to Edward. But with no free lunch on, your kind of starting options end up being a bit limited, and generally. There's only, I don't have the number memorized, but there's just a small handful of places, like starting like with the Antlion Cave, where you can get a potential key item by fighting a fairly low power boss, and then that oftentimes, assuming you don't get a kind of a sphere item as your starter, that often becomes kind of a first place to go, looking for one, along with Fable Castle.
For sure. So you actually mentioned the different flags, and I know you guys touched on it a little bit during the run itself. But is what we saw today generally typical of what you'll do in a free enterprise? Is there sort of a defined rule set that most of the community plays with in terms of flag settings, or I mean, is it pretty free form?
It's pretty free form. I mean, like there's a community seed of the week, which, well, like the name implies, is a specific ROM of free enterprise generated each week, and the flag sets are very wildly different for that. But I mean, like what we did tonight was a flag set that was used for a tournament that happened a couple months ago called the Highway to the Zemus Zone League, and then that's why the category on the layout was called League Matches Flags, because for a lot of the 4-way races in that league, that was the exact flag set we used to kind of make for races with a fair bit of challenge to it, but that could still be pretty reliably completed in about the 2-hour range or so in most cases.
Sounds good. Well, Puwexil, thank you for answering some of those questions. Now I'm hoping you can help me tell the people about some of the amazing Final Fantasy prizes we have that are running, like I mentioned earlier, from now until the end of Mario Sunshine. So directly behind you, actually, on our shelf, we have a couple of really cool things. We have a Final Fantasy IV free enterprise wall hanging made by SchalaKitty, who was actually one of the people behind the scenes helping out fill out the trackers.
Yes, along with the artist that drew that frightening depiction of the animals that was the final boss for the race.
Frightening is definitely a word for it. It caught me by surprise, and it sounded like it caught the audience by surprise, too. Guys, it is a $15 minimum donation from now until the end of Super Mario Sunshine. It's super cool, laser cut onto, like, metal. I love it. You guys definitely want to get your donations in. From our good friend Qwert, we have a Final Fantasy IV pixel art scene of the prologue screen of Final Fantasy IV. And this is actually super cool. It's a perler, but not in the way you think. The beads are sideways and melted together on top of each other. We have a great picture of it on our tracker. I actually didn't even realize it was made out of perler beads at first. I was like, wow, this is a very nice cross stitch. Oh, no, it is not. But it is a $30 minimum donation from now until the end of Sunshine. You should definitely get those donations in. Coming to us from Scratch Dragon, we have a pretty beautiful Final Fantasy IV free enterprise map depicting Zeromus in his normal appearance.
Well,
you know.
Actually, that's not actually the normal appearance. That's, in fact, the kind of a really obscure picture of Zeromus that was actually adapted to be the final sprite of the Highway to the Zemus Zone League.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm getting schooled by the master here. Thank you very much for that information, Puwexil. You know, from our great friend Pidge01, we have 2 sets of Final Fantasy perlers, the battle sprites as well as the overworld sprites. And, you know, Puwexil, I think it's probably been a solid 15 years since I played FF4, so I'm going to pull some of these perlers out, and I'm going to try and tell you who they are. I want you to tell me how many of these I get right. All right, first one. Which way does he go?
He goes face down.
Okay. Cloud. Okay. No, we'll put that one to the side. That's fine. That's fine. I can get one of these, I'm sure. A car.
Not quite.
All right. I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get one of these.
He can punch like one in the right situation, though.
No, I got this one. This is Sid.
It is.
All right. I learned something today. Yeah, I'm getting applause from the audience. I love it. Old ninja.
Not quite.
All right. We'll take what we can get here.
He is a ninja, though.
Guy who kind of looks like Kane.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
All right, sure. I'll take the point. I'll take him where I can get him. Actually Kane.
No.
All right, that's Dark Knight Cecil.
It is.
It is. I learned something today. Guys, we have a whole set of them. They're super adorable. You should definitely get in your donations for both the Battle Perler set and the Overworld Perler set. The Battle sprites are a $10 minimum donation. The Overworld sprites are a $5 minimum donation. And they come with the alternate color palettes you guys mentioned as having been put in the game specifically for free enterprise.
One shout out I'd like to make to, especially with those alternate palettes too, is that they were actually all hand drawn too, because normally in a lot of ROM hacks, you just have kind of recolorations that are just done through automation, basically by changing one color into the other. But all of these alternate palettes were drawn by hand by our wonderful development team.
For sure. Now, here's actually something we had made live on stream a few days ago. We have this beautiful Glacier Lecaque tank.
That is, in fact, that boss's name.
Yeah,
I played the game. I can confirm.
I know all about Glacier Lecaque tank. Everybody loves Glacier Lecaque tank. I think we had like 50 or 60 Twitter responses that were like, hey, can you guys make Glacier Lecaque tank? So they made Glacier Lecaque tank. He looks absolutely amazing. Honestly, one of a kind. Just papercraft art from the social media team at Arby's. I love their style. I don't know how they do this. I watched a demonstration they gave to Sumi and myself. I still don't know how they do any of it. It's absolutely amazing, guys. A $30 minimum donation for the best boss in the Mega Man Zero series. Make sure to get those donations
Bar
in.
none.
Bar none. And guys, remember that every donation you get yourself in is going to get you one step closer to winning our grand prize, a replica Master Sword and Hylian Shield. They are 1-to-1 replicas of the Master Sword and Hylian Shield used in Breath of the Wild. They come to us courtesy of our good friends over at Heroic Replicas, and they are just absolutely amazing. They're both a solid like 10, 15 pounds. The detail on them is exquisite. Guys, it's a $250 minimum donation, and I know that sounds like a lot. It is, but here's the thing. It's cumulative. So hey, if you've donated earlier this week in the marathon, you might already almost be there. You know, maybe donate $50 tonight, $50 tomorrow, and if you've already donated another $150 throughout the week, bam, you got a chance to win some genuinely one-of-a-kind replicas from our good friends at Heroic Replicas. And with that, guys, I'm going to remind you all, as always, you're going to want to head over to gamesdonequick.com, check out the tracker, because it's going to have all the information you're going to need for upcoming speedruns, upcoming donation incentives you can put those donations to, and upcoming prizes you can win by making those donations. But for now, I think that's going to be it for us. Puwexil, thank you so much for joining me, as always.
My pleasure.
And I think we're going to throw it back up to the host as we get ready for TaskBot, guys.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Awesome Games Done Quick 2019, live from Rockville, Maryland. We still got a little bit of time to fill before TaskBot takes over, so we're going to fill some time with some donations. And suitably, we're going to start off with Nux133, who says, I, for one, welcome our new TaskBot overlord. Thank you very much for that $50 donation. Neat247 donated $128 and says, Final Fantasy? Task Block and Super Mario all in one day? Best Friday ever. G. Chris donated $50 and says, all hail TaskBot. So I would like to mention that we do have the bonus game incentive that's open at the moment for Bloodborne. We've got quite a ways to go, but we got plenty of time to work on it. We're working towards a $250,000 donation total for that one. And we have quite a few people who are hyped for it in the donations, so we're going to read off a couple of those. We have a $50 donation from Ezelia. It says, bonus Bloodborne run? Bonus Bloodborne run? We are born of the blood, made men by the blood, undone by the blood. Fear the old blood. Thank you for your donation. I have an anonymous donation that has no comment, but they donated $2,500. Thank you so very much for your generosity. We have $5 from James 14, who says, I don't have much to donate, but thank you all for this event and to everyone who is helping an amazing cause. I lost my grandfather to pancreatic cancer last night. He was the biggest influence to me. Much love to you all. Donation goes to Announcer's Choice. Thank you so much for that donation. And we are getting tons of large donations, but keep in mind, you don't have to donate a lot to help. We average a large number of donations over these weeks, so even those $5 donations help a bunch. Thank you so much, and I'm so sorry for your loss. Digital Badger donated $25 and says, excited for the upcoming task block. Here's to crushing cancer. I have an anonymous $250 donation that says, looking forward to TaskBot. Gotta have more. So I gotta tell you guys, I was working with them earlier. I know what's coming. You should be excited. It's gonna be pretty hype. Now, we have a question from Satoriu for this $30 donation, and he asks, does TaskBot use Rob in Smash? I'm not sure about that one. We can ask Dwango and get back to you on that one later. We'll keep you updated. It's a good question. So the audience is getting into it, but so are the donors. I've got $100 from High Papyrus, who says, must donate for my robot overlord. Long live TaskBot. Cancer sucks, and like too many people, I've had it in the past and have beaten it. We will not rest until no one has to suffer anymore. And all right, and with that, I'm being told that TaskBot's